Hello, hello, hello. This is Coach Red Pill speaking to you live. This is webinar number 24, Budgeting and Planning Your Life. And it's great to be here with you all. And just as usual, just before we get started, we can do a quick sound check. Can you please raise your little hand there to make sure that you can hear me? If you can hear me, please raise your little hand just to confirm that audio is okay. Yeah, okay. So it seems like everybody's on board. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to the show. Sorry that we had to do it on Saturday as opposed to Sunday. It's usually Sunday, and next Sunday will be no exception. But tomorrow, Sunday, September 6th, I am going to be traveling. And so that's why I had to reschedule for today, Saturday. I'm sorry about that. It can't be helped. I'll give you a little preview, okay? And I'm teasing people about this. I will be teasing people about this on my channels that I'm doing something kind of well, I'll tell you just so long as you don't tell people in general. I'm going skydiving. Yeah, I'm going to the north of Holland to this place that they do skydiving stuff. And so what happens is that I'm traveling tomorrow to get there to a place called Texel. Actually, it's not pronounced that way. I think it's pronounced Texel, something like that. But it's spelt Texel. And I'm going to be doing skydiving on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, weather permitting. And if not, it'll be extended. And it's far enough away that it's smarter for me to travel the day before and stay at a hotel there, as opposed to travel in the morning and hope to get there by 9 a.m. on Monday when the lesson begins. So that's why it's going to be rescheduled. I'm going to be taking video and stuff like that and posting it. And I'm going to be doing these little quickie videos that I've been doing on my GL channel. And I'm going to be teasing people that, I'm going to be doing something death-defying and shit like that. But you guys are going to know that I'm not going to die, or I hope I don't die. I'm just going to be doing this. I'm really, really looking forward to it. It's something that I've been wanting to do for decades. When I was living in LA in like 97 or so, I had the opportunity to go skydiving and I didn't do it. And I so regret it. And just the years roll by and you just don't get around to doing something. And skydiving is one of those things. It's not as expensive as you would think. And I'll tell you right now, I'm going, this is in Holland, which is a fairly expensive country. And it's going to be 7 jumps over the course of 2.5 days. And it's costing me 1,200 euros. 1,200 euros is roughly 1,350, $1,400 roughly for 7 jumps, okay? 7 solo jumps, not tandem jumps, right? So this is going to be really cool with instructors and the whole thing. I mean, it's like a serious thing. And on top of that, they're going to be videotaping me, right? So yeah, I'll be doing like a whole broadcast to talk about it because I'm really looking forward to it. And like I said, it's not that expensive, and I would suggest you check it out because see, it's one of those things that you always talk about doing, but you never actually do. And skydiving, it seems to me, just seems like the coolest damn thing. And so I'm like, hell yeah. So there I'm going, and that's what I'm going to be doing. And just to mess with people, I'm going to be posting like these videos saying that, oh, I'm going off to do something death-defying, and maybe I won't return and shit like that. But I fully expect to return. Yeah, let's fingers crossed that I return. So anyway, that's what I'm going to be doing. And that's why we had to reschedule for today. Please forgive me. I'm so sorry if this messes with your plans. And yeah, so today we're going to be doing budgeting and planning your life, which is a topic that a lot of people have asked me about. About 3 years ago, when I was starting the channel, I did a video called Budgeting Your Life that you can check out. It's pretty easy. What you do is just Google Coach Red Pill budget or budgeting, and the videos will appear. You shouldn't have any trouble finding them, right? One is relatively short, but the other is really long. And this presentation that I'm going to be doing is sort of like based on that presentation, but it's a little bit different because over the years I've thought about it more. And yeah, and so I've come to certain conclusions, and well, you'll see soon enough. Now, the point I wanted to make before we get started is the issue of budgeting and planning your life. Now, the planning your life, that seems pretty clear. The metaphor that I would constantly use is, when you wake up in the morning and you decide to go somewhere, You don't hop in your car and just randomly drive. No, you decide where you want to end up. And based on where you want to end up, you work backwards. That is, you're living in, say, Wichita, Kansas, just for the sake of argument, and you want to go to Malibu, California. And so what do? You look at the map at Malibu and you look at the roads that you need to take to get there from Wichita. See? And of course, if you're looking at Malibu, then what you're going to look at, the Pacific Coast Highway, and then you're going to roll back until you get to Interstate 10, which is the Santa Monica Freeway, and so on. You're going to work your way backward all the way back to Wichita, right? And then you're going to say, okay, these are the roads I need to take, and you hop in your car in Wichita and you drive those roads until you get to Malibu, right? That's how you should be living your life, in the sense of defining your destination, planning your destination, understand what that destination entails. That's the key issue. What do I mean by that? Understand that your life ends, and it's perfectly normal, and it's not something to be afraid of. A lot of people are afraid of death. A lot of people hide from the fact that they will die, and therefore they don't really look at that moment, look at the end of their life, and think to themselves how they want to end up. That's the thing you have to be thinking about. How do you want to end up? Okay? It's the key issue. And that's the top line that you should start with when you start to plan your life. How do you want to end up? Okay? Now, that's the planning part. Now, the budgeting. Well, what does budgeting mean? It means that you are in possession of a limited resource and you want to maximize that limited resource. How do you go about doing that? That's what budgeting literally means, right? Usually we think of budgeting insofar as money. You set up a budget, a monthly budget for the things that you have to spend money on, and you figure out, well, this is how much money I need, and this is how much money I'm gonna have to spend, and so on, right? But the limited resource that you have in your life is time. There is no way to make more time. No matter how rich you are, you can't buy more time. It's impossible. The time you have is all the time you're ever gonna have. And every second that you waste or throw away is a second that does not come back. And so you have to be very careful with your time. Think about it. Think about how to use your time, and think about how time can be divided into blocks, like on a spreadsheet. And you figure out how you're going to use those years, or that year, or that month, or that week, or day, or whatever. How you're gonna use it. The same way you'd figure out, how you're going to use the money that you have for your monthly expenses. Okay, so those are the two components. Recognize that you have a destination, and recognize that you have a limited resource, which is time. Okay, so let's get started. Hang on just a second. I just want to make sure that you guys are seeing what I'm seeing, and you should be seeing this. There we go. Yeah, you should be seeing like a rainbow colored. I'm just going to put everybody's hand down and just to check real quick. You ought to be seeing a rainbow spreadsheet. Can you raise your hand if you see that rainbow spreadsheet? Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. So yeah, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to be showing this, and periodically I'll be asking you guys to check to make sure that you see what I see. Okay, because I'm not 100% on this system, and just to make sure. I don't know if the lettering is too small for you. I hope not, but I'll read it out for you, so don't worry. Okay, so this is a budget that I set up, and it's incredibly useful to figure out your life. At the top line, on the top left-hand corner, it says when I'm 80, and then the decade after, okay? Then below that, it says when I'm 70, then the decade after. When I'm 60, and the decade after. When I'm 50, and so on. You get the point. The top line is the end of your life. Now, actuaries tell us that the average lifespan of people in the Western democracies is roughly, between 78 and 83 years, something like that, okay? I mean, when you hit 80, that's pretty much the end. You're not going to have many more years ahead of you. And the years ahead of you you're not going to be able to work. You're not really going to be able to do much. I mean, it's the end of your life. And you want to be thinking to yourself now, no matter what your age, you can be 40, 30, 20, you could be a teenager. But what you want to be thinking about now is, what sort of life do you want to have at 80? What do you want in the different aspects of your life? What kind of women do you want in your life? What kind of friends? What kind of family life? Your career, your finances, everything. I mean, you want to be thinking to yourself, what's the end stage? Okay. And here's a key issue that people don't think enough of. When you are 80, nobody's going to look after you unless you have the money to pay them to look after you. It's as simple as that. And that's a reality. Now, a lot of people sort of like figure, oh, the government will take care of me. That's bullshit. That's stupid. The government won't look after you. And look, we can see the chaos that's going on right now. And you can start to realize that the period of time from the 1950s, roughly, up until the 2000s, 2010s maybe, when people got Social Security benefits and so forth when they were old, that was a blip. That was just a good luck for those people. You, me, the government will not take care of us. And you're going to see a lot of elderly people just be abandoned. Yeah. And they'll be piled up into old age homes run by the government, but it's going to be atrocious. I mean, recognize that that's what's going to happen. So you have to be thinking to yourself, that old man that I am going to become, because I will become that old man, and there's nothing that will stop that fact. Well, I want to take care of him. I want to make sure that he has all the money to make it. I also want to make sure that his body and therefore his mind is in pretty decent shape, because there is no dichotomy between the body and the mind. Okay, that's bullshit. I studied philosophy, and that was one of the mental masturbation questions in philosophy. The mind body dichotomy. Bullshit. The mind is an expression of the brain, and the brain is part of the body. That's a fact. And if your body is in good shape, your brain will likely be in good shape, and therefore your mind, your consciousness will be in fairly decent shape. Look at Joe Biden. Joe Biden is 77 years old. The guy is losing it. And why? Because he probably didn't take care of himself over the years. Between booze and not exercising and whatnot, he didn't take care of himself. He did take care of his finances. I mean, the guy is a pig. I mean, he probably stole God knows how much money and got a bunch load more money from the credit card companies over the years, right? That's the kind of guy he was, but okay, that doesn't really matter. The point is, see, he's got plenty of money to hire nurses and whatnot to take care of him. You want to be thinking along the same lines. So let's go piece by piece, because as you can see the columns, each column is a different facet of your life. Now, there's your life, there's fitness, assets, finances, career, family life, women, and friends, okay? Now, at this stage in your life, insofar as fitness is concerned, it's maintenance. It's just keeping up. Because the hard work insofar as your body, insofar as keeping your body up, that happened decades earlier. At this point in your life, you want to be in relatively good health. And at that time, you want to be able to go to the gym 3-4 times a week and be able to walk 2 miles a day. Now, you'd be surprised. Not many 80-year-olds can do this. There is a substantial minority, 30% is the figure that I came across, that roughly a third of 80-year-old men can walk no problem 2 miles per day, and they can go 3-4 times a week to do exercise for 60 minutes. This is possible, but in order to do so, they must have been taking care of themselves earlier, that is in the decades earlier. And what I've been reading is that there isn't really like a cutoff point, okay? Like when you're in your 20s and 30s and 40s and even your 50s, there isn't a moment that, okay, beyond this point, you can't do anything. No. It's never too late is the point I'm trying to make. You can be right now 45 years old and overweight, but you still have time to start to get your shit together insofar as your body is concerned, your fitness is concerned. Lose the weight, get down to the appropriate weight. And there are lots of, by the way, in this presentation, I'm going to gloss over a lot of stuff, like for instance, in fitness, what is your ideal weight? There's lots of ways to figure that out. Just look it up. What I'm presenting here is an overview of the whole picture. Each specific thing, you got to figure it out on your own, okay? But it's not that hard. So you shouldn't have any trouble figuring out each of these issues on your own. But anyway, going back to this issue of fitness, it seems that when it's sort of like too late is roughly the age of 60. That seems to be like, 60, 65. If you haven't been taking care of yourself, after that, you're just screwed. Okay, that's when it's sort of like it doesn't matter anymore. But also, do keep in mind, people who didn't take care of themselves before age 65, yeah, practically none start taking care of themselves after age 65. So it could be that. But the point, it's never too late to try to get in shape. And by the time you're 80, you want to be fit enough that you can go to the gym 3-4 times a week for an hour each time and walk 2 miles unassisted per day. That ought to be your goal. Now, when I say going to the gym for 3-4 times a week for an hour each time, then doing exercise that would be appropriate to your physical condition at that time, okay? Now, insofar as assets, see, each person has different material ambitions, okay? These are the assets that I think are reasonable for any reasonable guy. You own your house outright. You have cash savings, cash, hard currency savings, equal to 15 years of living expenses. You own 20 rental properties outright, and you are living off the rental income, okay? That ought to be your goal. By age 80, that's where you want to be. You own your own place, you have 20 rental properties, or it doesn't really matter how many rental properties you have. The key issue is you have enough rental income that you don't have to worry about money. You don't have to worry about food. You don't have to worry about anything, and you're going to have enough money that you can hire a nurse or somebody to take care of you, because that will become a necessity after the age of 80, okay? Now, insofar as your finances are concerned, you want to be comfortably living off your rental income, and you want to be easily able to pay your medical bills from the rental income, okay? Excuse me. That's the most important thing. That's where you want to be insofar as your financial situation, okay? There are, how can I put it? Oh, and by the way, when I say cash savings, it can be also any kind of liquid investment, like for instance, treasury bonds, anything that's very safe and liquid, like treasury bonds or precious metal, not necessarily stock, because stock, yes, it's liquid, but it doesn't, maintain its value. It can go up and down. Whereas a bond, for instance, or a precious metal, barring any kind of like financial crisis or whatnot, it's going to be fairly stable in value, okay? So you want to have those cash savings, be it in actual dollars or something that you can instantly sell, like a treasury bond or like gold or silver, okay? Yeah, and finances, okay. And so far as your career, it's over. It's over. We're going to get to the career in a moment, but you have to understand your career, your business, whatever, at 80, you're done, okay? So, forget about it. Insofar as your family life, what do you want to be? You want to have, well, this is what I want, okay? And so I'm putting it out there and you guys decide what you want. But in my own case, it would be nice to have 3, 4, or 5 kids at age 80, when I'm age 80, 3 or 4 or 5 kids out in the world living and having a family of their own or businesses of their own, 5 adult children by the age of 80. That's a reasonable ambition, okay? And here's a key issue. You might not have any kids right now, but you're only like, say, 40, for instance, and you say, oh man, 40, I'm so old. Well, not really. If you're thinking that, you're going to live to be 80 or older, right? let's just say that you are going to hit 80, but you're going to die in the decade after that, which is sort of like inevitable, right? Well, if you're 40 now, that's 40 more years. And you say, well, I'm 40 years old right now, but that's pretty old. Well, not really. You know, you still have 4 more decades ahead of you. Right now, it's the year 2020. So 4 more decades is the year 2060. You got plenty of time, buddy. Okay? Plenty of time, and more to the point. See, if you at age 40 decide, I'm going to find a woman to have a family, say it takes you a year and a half, 2 years, 2 years to find the right girl. You'll be 42. And say it takes you another 2 years to be absolutely sure and lock her down, and another year to have a kid. You'll be 45. And say you start having kids, you know, every 2.5 to 3 years. So you had the first kid at 45, the second at 48, the third at 51. And let's say a fourth at 54, right? Well, 54 and 80, that's 26 years, right? So your youngest kid will be 26 years old when you're 80. He'll be an adult. He'll be out in the world doing shit, you see? So you say to me, well, I'm 40, it's over for me. Well, no, not really. And I just showed you it's not over. I mean, think about it. It takes you 2 years to find a woman, 2 years, okay? And you're like deliberately looking for a woman to have kids with, a family with, right? And then it takes you another 2 years to be absolutely sure. I mean, you meet her after 2 years of looking, and then you're dating her for another 2 years to be absolutely sure. And then finally you're absolutely sure and you have a kid with her. That's another year. You're 45. You're going to be fine. You see what I'm saying? And 45, you have a kid at 45, and then another at, like I said, 48, 51, 54. Your youngest kid at age 80, your youngest kid is going to be 26, and your oldest kid is going to be 35. They're going to be adults. They'll probably have children of their own. You'll probably be a grandfather. You're 40 years old now, and you're like, oh, I'm so miserable. My life is over, blah, blah, blah. And I've just showed you that it's not over. It's never over until it's over. Yogi Berra said that, and those are fucking wise words. I mean, kind of like insane if you think about it on one hand, but on the other hand, extremely wise. It's never over until it's over. Okay? Okay. Now, insofar as women are concerned, hopefully you'll still be married to the first wife or perhaps widowed, right? That's where you're going to be. But to tell you the truth, once you hit 75, the pecker ain't working anymore. I mean, Hugh Hefner was banging girls when he was 90, but it took a lot of goddamn chemicals. And it's kind of like weird. I've talked to older guys about this particular topic, by the way. And it's really interesting what they say. They just say, I'm just not interested anymore. One guy, an older guy I knew, and he once told me, he said, I got enough trim when I was young that it didn't matter anymore. And he was like in his late 70s at the time that he told me this. And yeah, you kind of like don't give a shit anymore about fucking girls anymore. You care much more about companionship, about having a good time, okay? And here comes the issue of friends. See, you want to have at least one true friend. That's your goal, to have one true friend, somebody that you can really tell everything to, okay? And have at least 3 friends or people in your life that you can call in an emergency. And have 25 acquaintances that you can just show up to have a nice time, a party or whatever. See, that ought to be your goals. I mean, they're my goals, quite frankly. The goals of like, this is what I want at the end of my life, okay? And insofar as like career, I just put it's over. But what I really want insofar as my career when I hit age 80 is I want people to think well of me in my career and in my business. I know I'm not going to be active in my career or my business because I'm going to be old. My body is just not going to be up for it. My head isn't going to be up for it. I'm just not going to have the drive for it, especially as you start accumulating assets, you become financially more independent. The money issue, the material issue becomes less important, less worrisome. And because of it, you just lose the drive. It's inevitable. And it happens to every guy, okay? Once he starts accumulating enough assets, he's not going to have the drive anymore, right? But even though I won't have the drive anymore, and you won't either, what I would like, and probably you would like too, is to be appreciated and respected in my career or my business or my professional environment. I'm not going to be, at the cutting edge of anything, but I want to feel that I am appreciated and that what I did was worthwhile. Okay. Okay. So that's when I'm 80. Now, when I'm 70, right? Let me just fix this real quick uh, 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 and wait a second here, just to wait. There we go. Okay. Now, insofar as 70, right? When you're 70, you're just going to be further on the decline that started, in your late 50s. Okay, that's inevitable because the arc of your life is always like it starts out low at the very bottom and it arcs up to a peak, and the peak really in your life is going to be in your 40s and 50s, and then it starts to slowly go down. Now, when you're in your 70s and the decade after, that is the decade between age 71 and 80, it's further decline of your life, generally speaking. You cannot be thinking to yourself that the years in the ahead of you are going to be better than the years behind you. Quite the opposite. Okay. You have to recognize that fact. Now, insofar as fitness is concerned, what you want to be doing is you want to be maintaining your body, going to the gym 4 or 5 times a week, walking 2 miles, and hopefully running 5 miles a week. Now, earlier in the decades earlier, I'm going to propose that you be running a marathon. Yeah, because you're going to have the energy and the body and the physical aptitude to be able to run a marathon. To tell you the truth, I'm 52 and I have yet to run a marathon. For a while there, when I was in my late 30s, I was late 30s, 40 years old, like 39, 40. I started running like consistently because I was thinking of running a marathon. What happened to me personally was that I just couldn't take running. I fucking hated it. Okay, I found it so boring. I would listen to podcasts and conversation programs, interviews, whatever, just to distract myself, and it was just never enough. I was just bored. It wasn't an issue that my body couldn't take it. My mind couldn't take it. I just found it so boring. And I remember very clearly, I would like run with my dog, and I'd run, 3 miles, 5 miles, and slowly just building up. Yeah. And I just couldn't do it. And finally, one day, I ran 11 miles nonstop, no problem. I ran the whole thing, but I thought I wanted to commit suicide. I mean, I'm only being halfway facetious because I just found it so mind-numbingly boring. I just don't understand to this day. I cannot understand people who can run for 40 miles and they just love it. I just find it mentally so boring. And so I discovered squash. Squash gives me all of the aerobic exercise that running does, but it's something that mentally I enjoy. I just thrill to it, chasing that little black ball around a court and running here and there, and that cardio workout. Squash is the cardio workout for me, but the point, find the cardio workout that works for you. Okay. And when you're in your 70s, you want to be maintaining. Now, insofar as assets are concerned, you want to own your own house, cash savings, rental properties. I mean, you want to have more or less arrived at 70 insofar as your assets are concerned. Okay. In your finances, you got to be thinking to yourself, you want to be living off your rental income. And at the same time, that rental income or whatever income you have has to be paying off for the college, okay, for the colleges of your kids. Because that's roughly the time in your 70s, especially if you're a late father, which I recommend, that your kids are going to be in college. Now, do keep in mind, a lot of this stuff is influenced by my own situation. Perhaps you decide that you don't want to have kids. I think it's a mistake, by the way. I think it's when we get to it, in a couple of more lines, you'll see what I mean. But I think that having children is something that will give you enormous fulfillment. And you might not think so now, but they give you a reason to live. And you will discover as you age that living for yourself is not enough of a reason. When you're young, when you're in your 20s and 30s even, yes, you can live for yourself. But what'll happen is that once you hit like 40, your motivation starts to decline. And you'll discover that once you have children and the fear for their future, that will give you motivation, enormous motivation, more energy and more discipline than you had when you were younger. When you were younger and stronger, You'll have it because of your kids, because you'll be so worried about them. And that paradoxically, though you'll be very worried about your kids, it'll give you enormous energy. And because of that energy, you will accomplish a lot. Not only energy, but also discipline and consistency. I'll admit that before having my own children, I was not so consistent and not so disciplined as I am today. Today, I am far more disciplined, far more conscientious in everything that I do, precisely because of my children. So do keep that in mind. Okay. So yeah, and in your 70s, sure, have an extra girl. Yeah. And my thinking is that you should always have an extra girl around. Always. Yeah. No matter how happy you are in your marriage. Okay. It's so that, how could I put this? Because in any relationship between two people, one of the two always has the upper hand. One of the two always is the dominant one. And in any relationship between a man and a woman, the one who's dominant is the one who has options. That is inevitable. Okay? Oh, by the way, let me just check this real quick. I've been talking for this whole time. Let me put everybody's hand down, and I just want to check real quick. Do you guys see the columns more or less clearly? Raise your hand if you do. Yeah? Okay, so yeah, so see, everything's okay, great. I just want to make sure about that because I didn't want to get like ahead of myself and everybody's like scratching their heads and saying, what the hell is he talking about? We can't see a goddamn thing. Okay, so let me do something because going row by row is, yeah, it has a good points, but also a little bit of a bad point. And so let me just get through this a little bit more quickly. Hang on. So, and in your 60s, see, your 60s are like a very delicate time in your life, okay? Because when you hit 60, that's when you start to really decline. Mm-hmm. Now, do keep in mind the following. See, your body peaks at 22, 25. That's when a man's body peaks, just as a woman's body peaks at 22, 25, okay? But we are not hunter-gatherers anymore. We live in a technologically advanced society. And what happens, of course, is that 2025 today is considered still a child or a young adult. We are not at a peak. In our technologically advanced civilization, a man, most especially, professionally, personally, psychologically, he tends to peak in his 40s and 50s. 60 is when you start to decline, because 60 is the age at which the other people in this technologically advanced society start to not quite really pay attention to you anymore. And you see it in corporations where you have like some executive or something, and he's very capable. He's 55 years old and he's doing great. He's doing fine and everybody respects him and he's the big man in his department. He's vice president or whatever the hell, head of his division or whatnot. But then, he hits 60 and everybody's like, oh, he's the old man. And they don't start inviting him to the meetings and they start to phase him out. It's the way. Okay, because what happens also is that not for every man at 60, but for most men, or for the average, at 60, you start to experience cognitive decline. Just as when you hit 25, that's when you start to experience physical decline. I mean, like, for instance, tennis players, to give a concrete example, their best years are between the ages of 17 and 25. Now, after 25, they're considered old men. After 30, shit, they're senile, right? A 30-year-old man, he's got all his marbles, he's smart, he's sharp, he's everything, but his body is just not at its peak, right? Yeah, exactly, his body. Now, a man's mind, it peaks out between a combination of cognitive ability and experience in the decades of his 40s and 50s, because it's a combination. You're younger, like for instance, mathematicians, they peak in their early 20s because mathematical skill, it's really a function of physical ability, of how in shape you are, because again, the brain is an organ and the brain as an organ peaks in their early 20s. But the combination of cognitive ability plus experience, that peaks out at 40, 50. I mean, the decade between age 40 and 59. At age 60, what happens is that you're not really going to be gaining much experience and your cognitive decline starts to increase. And that's what happens. And the weird thing is that you kind of like see that in a guy's face. I mean, I did a video in Patreon, of course on Patreon. I never post this in like a free channel, called Physiognomy is Real. Physiognomy is the study of people's faces and how people's faces can reveal a lot about them, about their morality and whatnot, if they're a good person or a bad person. And by the way, there's some interesting studies about this. In China, they taught an artificial intelligence to look at faces, and they put in thousands of faces, and the AI could consistently pick out people who would be criminals based on their facial expressions or their facial structure. Yeah, it's scary, and it's true. And of course, in the West, they haven't applied it, or at least they haven't applied it publicly. But in China, they figured this out. Yeah, and they're applying it. Yeah, I'm betting that in the West they do too, but they just don't make a big to-do about it because it's really disturbing, but it's the truth. People's faces reveal who they are. Like it or not, physiognomy is real. And a person who's 60, you can tell there's something in their face that they're like just not at their peak anymore. You know, a man at 55, you're like, yeah, he's peaking, he's strong, he's the guy. A man who hits 60 or over, and it's not like on their 60th birthday, all of a sudden the switch gets flipped. No, it's sort of like around age 60. It could be later. It could be a lot later. It could be in his 70s or 80s, right? Hell, it could be in their 90s even, okay? But it happens. There's this moment where people look at a guy's face and they're like, oh man, he's over. And you subconsciously recognize it. I'm sure you guys have recognized it. You've seen it in people you know. You got to plan for it. You got to realize that at age 60, people around you, people in your social environment, they're going to look at you and like, oh yeah, he's over. You got to realize that, okay? And you got to realize that, and you got to realize that anything that you really wanted to achieve, you have to achieve it before age 60. Insofar as your career is concerned, your finances, whatnot, because as you can see here, 60 is, if you look at that as the hard limit, yeah, the decade of your 70s and the decade of your 80s is just a continuation of what you achieve by age 60, okay? 60 is what you're aiming for. You are thinking of what you want your 80-year-old version to be and how you want him to live his life. But 60, that's pretty much the end. Recognize that. Understand it in every facet, okay? It's not that 60 is the new 40 and 40 is the new 20 or some shit like that. No, no, no. You have to understand that at 60, people around you are no longer going to take you seriously, and therefore you will not be able to influence the world as much as you did before. Because remember, when we talk about influencing the world, we're really talking about influencing other people. You see? You got to understand this. Okay, so let's go through the different parts. Well, in your life, you're on the decline, as I explained. Now, insofar as maintenance, you want to be going to the gym 4 or 5 times a week and running 10 miles a week. Insofar as your assets, you want to be there with cash savings. This is the decade where you can have the most amount of cash savings, and you should have reached that plateau of 20 rental properties, okay? Not all of them perhaps owned outright, a lot of them with mortgages, but you should be getting there. You should be able to see that endpoint where you have all these rental properties that you are going to own outright. You can practically count away the months before you pay off all of the mortgages and you're done. You're set. You've got the portfolio of assets that will see you through the rest of your life by age 60. Okay? You don't have to own them all outright, but you have to be there like you see the goal, you see the end stage. Okay? Yeah. Insofar as your career, it's over. Okay? If you're in a corporate career, it's done for the reasons I explained before. And if you own your own business, you should be thinking to yourself that it's time to sell the business, and you should be looking for buyers, okay? You don't make a big to-do about it. And a lot of times, what'll be very interesting is that your competitors or other people will sort of like sniff out that you're done, and they'll come to you. You'd be surprised. I've talked about this issue with a lot of men, okay? And they told me different things that I've sort of like boiled down to what I'm telling you now, but it's really interesting. A lot of guys I know, older men than me, obviously I'm 52, but a lot of older men who are, I don't know, 20 years older than me, sometimes 40, 50 years older than me. I mean, they're passed away, many of them. But they told me it was very interesting that at a certain age, all of a sudden their competitors came to them. I'm remembering a particular individual. He had a lobbying firm in Washington, D.C., a very successful one. And what happened was that he was doing very well, and then all of a sudden, a competitor of his, a bitter rival of his, all of a sudden started, you know, schmoozing him, inviting him out, you know, pursuing him, and eventually bought out his lobbying firm. Yeah, because the competitor realized that the guy had peaked out. He was done. Okay. And he said that, you know, they'd been bitter rivals for a number of years, but then, you know, he was like, you know, what the fuck? Do I really want to keep on working? And he sold out, you know? And it was like a painless process, by the way. Okay. Because like I said, people recognize when you're done. Hmm? Okay. And so in your family life, what you want to have here is, you know, 3, 4 kids in school or university, perhaps, you know, still married, but you want to have at least 2 other girls in the rotation. Now, why do you want to have this? Why do you want to be cheating on your wife? That's the question. Well, because see, you don't rub your wife's nose in the fact that you have other girls, okay? And in point of fact, if she ever asks, you deny it vehemently. I mean, you always deny vehemently. If you've committed a crime, no matter what the crime is, okay, you have to deny it. You could be standing over the corpse of the guy that you knifed with the knife in hand, the bloody knife, with his blood and your fingerprints, because you're still holding the fucking knife, over the guy. Yeah? You could be caught in that position with videotape and everything, and you have to say, no, I didn't do it. Oh, no, you know, I was just walking along and the knife just fell out of the sky into my hand and I grabbed it. You know, I didn't want it to hurt anybody. And oh, well, here's the dead guy. I didn't do it. You always deny, okay, is my point. And, you know, your woman, your wife, right, comes at you and do you have other girlfriends? No, dear, I don't have any girlfriends. She'll know. She'll always know. Okay, women always have like a sixth sense about it. And you can deny it, and they will accept your denial, but they'll know. And here's the weird thing. They'll be turned on by it. It's a combination of emotions. They'll be turned on by it, okay? That they are married to a guy who can still pull pussy. And on the other hand, they will feel insecure and know that you can trade them out, that you can drop them. And that'll keep them on the straight and narrow. And that's a fact. That's the way of the world. That's the way of the relationship between a man and a woman. Okay? A woman who knows that her man can get other pussy, a woman who knows that he is getting other pussy, she'll be on her best behavior. She won't do any shit that you don't have to put up with. And you just tell her, look, I don't have to put up with your bullshit. And she asks you, yeah, or else what? And you tell her, or else I'll trade you in. And she'll chill the fuck out. Believe me, it's the truth. Okay? And the weird thing is, like I said, women kind of like that because every woman wants to be with a guy who's high value. But more to the point, see, a guy whose woman cheats on him, that's devastating for him, and he won't get over it. And in fact, he shouldn't. He should drop the woman right on the spot. A woman cheats on you, drop her instantly. Yes, yeah. And check to make sure that the kids are actually yours with a DNA test and the whole thing. Yeah, an independent DNA test. Don't fuck around. Okay, if she cheats on you, absolutely. Drop her and check the DNA of the kids. But because, of course, it's an evolutionary issue. See, a woman who cheats on a man might get pregnant by that other man. And you presumably would be raising a bastard. And more to the point, from an evolutionary perspective, it's a disaster because you are devoting resources to a child who is not yours. But women, on the other hand, if her man cheats with some other woman, he'll leave some bastard around for some other woman to deal with. But if he is married to her and devotes his resources and attention to her, she'll feel secure. She'll be irritated by the fact that he's fucking other girls, but she won't feel insecure. She won't be devastated. I mean, she'll have hurt feelings, but it won't be cataclysmic like it would be for a man. So go ahead. I mean, yeah, don't have any qualms about it. Okay. Okay. So in the decade of your 50, that was your decade of your 60s. Let's look at the decade of your 50s, age 50 to 59. Okay. Hang on a second. Let me just do this real quick. The thingy here. See, this is the peak of your life, age 50. I'm moving it there to the top. Okay. This is the peak of your life because it's a combination of you're going to be smart, not as smart as you used to be, not as intelligent. I mean, like raw IQ points as you used to be. Like I said, those peak out in your early 20s, your raw IQ points, but much more valuable than IQ points. You will have lost IQ points but gained experience. In your 50s, you're going to be peaking. Okay. It happens to every guy in this technologically advanced civilization that we have. Okay. So you want to be thinking about where you want to be peaking. Okay. What you want to be in each of these things. Now, insofar as fitness, you want to be maintaining things that you were doing before, because as I'll get to them pretty shortly, you want to be going to the gym 4 or 5 times a week for an hour, sweating. Okay. Another rule of thumb I once heard is that it's always good to sweat 30 minutes every day. No matter what you do, just sweat 30 minutes every day. That's a pretty good rule of thumb. Okay. I myself, right now, I have a different exercise routine. What I'm doing is I do throughout the day 5 sets of different exercises. For instance, I do 30 push-ups. I do 30 push-ups like twice a day, and I also do 10 chin-ups every day, and I do 2 sets of 25 sit-ups. And that's pretty much my routine. And I do them randomly throughout the day. Whenever I have an idle minute, when I sort of like remember, I'm like, oh, I'll do this real quick. Okay. I either do it here at home or I do it in my office because I have a separate office. And yeah, I do it real quick. And I don't really sweat during that period of time. Oh, and the other thing I also do is I walk about roughly about 5 miles every day, roughly, because I'm a big walker and I enjoy walking. Okay, because I think about stuff and blah blah. But anyway, the point, I don't actually sweat every day. My cardio is pretty poor at this point because I've sort of like been neglecting it. But even though my cardio is pretty poor, I'm doing all of this exercise, and I notice it. I notice it that I feel good about it. Okay, I feel good about myself in general. That's what you should be doing. You don't have to flip out over it. Okay, just be doing it throughout the day. That's my routine. Okay, but it works different for different people. It works differently. And so the point I'm trying to make here, insofar as the fitness is concerned, figure out what works for you. Okay, figure out what works for you and do that. Don't force yourself, because a lot of guys force themselves and they're miserable. Like when I was running, I wanted to run a marathon. And I remember very clearly when I ran 11 miles, I thought to myself, this is almost a half marathon. I can run a marathon. Mentally, because of the boredom, I can't. But physically, yeah, I'm able to. So fuck this shit. I'm going to do something else because I hate it. And I really did. I mean, I had all these fantasies, ambitions to like run marathons around the world, and it seemed really cool. But the reality of running just made me feel miserable. I mean, it just really wrecked my mood. I was so bored that I'd run, and then for at least an hour or two afterwards, I had to sort of like decompress and do something else, and just calm down from the irritation of running. That's not good, obviously, right? So that's why I changed and stopped running. So you do the same. Figure out what works for you and that makes you feel good, that you enjoy it. Today, when I play squash, for instance, I love playing squash. And after I'm done playing squash, I take a shower and the whole bit, I feel fantastic. I glow, for the next couple of hours during my day. And I feel just incredible. I mean, not like the physical part, but mood wise. Even when I lose, I don't mind losing when I play squash. In fact, I usually lose because I try to play with people better than myself. And I don't mind at all losing. What I love and enjoy and just makes me feel terrific is the competitiveness of it and running around and chasing the stupid black ball. That improves my mood, whereas running made me feel miserable. be careful of that. Do the exercise that makes you feel good. When I do sit-ups now or push-ups now, I feel good about it when I'm done. And also, it takes me just a few minutes, just 2 or 3 minutes tops, to do those sets. And so when I do it real quick like that, it's like it doesn't eat away at me in any way, and I feel good. I feel, the blood's pumping, and I feel good. Be sure to do that, okay? Now, assets. You ought to be owning your own house outright by this time, and you ought to have cash savings, investable assets, call them what you will, for 10 years of living expenses, okay? And you should be owning at this time roughly 10 rental properties, 3 of them outright, 7 with mortgages, paying for themselves. That's the point. When you buy rental properties, which you should be doing as early as possible, what you want to be doing is buying rental properties that will pay their own mortgages, okay? Now, in my own case, not only do they pay their own mortgages, they also pay for the property manager, because I don't want to be bothered with it. I want the whole operation to be sort of like independent, that I don't have to be sitting there day after day. And so I pay a rental manager. I pay him between 10 and 15%. And that way, I don't have to worry about all the little stupid shit that pops up. Oh, this has to be fixed and that has to be fixed and this has to be repaired and repainted and whatnot. I don't care about that. The property manager deals with it, the rental manager, and that's terrific for my mental health, because it's something that's growing all on its own without me having to devote a lot of time to it. I devote, insofar as my own property portfolio, I devote maybe 6 hours, 8 hours a month, tops, spread out during the month, it's not that much. And you're saying, well, yeah, but you're giving up 10 to 15% of your rental income to the property manager, and not to mention the whole repair and whatnot. Yeah, but it's an issue of peace of mind. See, I don't mind having a lower return on investment when I have an operation that I don't have to put in more money to it, because the money that it generates by way of rental income pays for the mortgages and all of the expenses. I don't mind. I don't mind at this stage in my life, at 52, I don't mind if those properties are essentially a zero in my life, because they are. They are, in terms of income, it doesn't affect my life at all. The rental income is enough to cover all of the expenses. And also, any exceedant of the rental income, I set aside in a special dedicated account. And so whenever an expense arises, well, that account, that dedicated account, is the one that I turn to pay for any of these random expenses. When something big pops up or whatever, something breaks that's fairly expensive or whatnot, or has to be repaired or re-roofed or whatever the hell. You see what I'm saying? And so for me, it's a net zero. I don't get any income now, and I don't put out any money now, right? When I was younger, I actually did put out more money. The money that I earned, I put money into these rental properties, insofar as paying a bigger initial payment, down payment, or paying off the mortgage, part of the mortgage, and refinancing and stuff like that. Yeah, I did that before, but now I'm at that stage in my 50s. It's a zero, okay? And I know, I can see that by the time I'm 60, I've already calculated it, by the time I'm 63, 64, that's when my entire portfolio will be mine outright, all mortgages paid off, and all that income will go right to my back pocket. At 63, 64 at the latest, I will be totally independent with an income large enough that I don't have to worry. And that's the point. You see what I'm saying? Okay. Now, insofar as finances are concerned, your 50s are going to be your peak earning years. Okay. That's when you're going to be earning the most amount of money in your life, your 50s. Because again, like I said, it's that combination of experience and brains. If you were born with, say, just for the sake of argument, 130 IQ points, or you peaked at 130 IQ points when you were 22, right? By the time you're 50, you might have lost maybe 10% of those. Maybe you're down to 120, 118 IQ points, 120 IQ points, say. But your experience makes up for it, okay? Your experience makes up for it and gives you an additional 25 IQ points, easily, because experience counts for a lot. You've seen enough, okay? And so that's why in your 50s, it's going to be your peak earning years. Because, yeah, you might not be as smart and clever as you were when you were younger, but you've seen enough to make up for it. So you're going to be peaking out. So what you want to be doing, you want to be saving roughly 50% of your net income. Yeah, at that age, sure. Because that's going to be your peak earning years. Because, like I said, that combination of experience and brain power. You want to be, insofar as your assets are concerned, you want to be reinvesting all of the rental income into the properties to pay them off as quickly as possible. Insofar as your career, this is the peak of your career. It's not going to get any better. Okay, in that decade of your 50s, your career, your business. And you'll notice too that your 50s are your peak and your 60s all of a sudden the end. It's quite a change. I'll tell you that right now. A lot of guys can't quite get over it, but it happens to every guy. Just like with women, women are hot in their 20s and even into their early 30s, but all of a sudden, like 34, 38, around there, boom, done, gone. No guy looks at her, right? I mean, you guys all know that. The wall, the famous wall, that all of a sudden a woman is just, invisible to most men. And the men are looking to the women who are younger than them, maybe just a couple of years younger than them, but they're not looking at them anymore. No, because they hit the wall, because it's over. Same with guys. Same with guys in their careers and their businesses. Okay. The only guys who are paid attention to past the age of 60 are guys who are so rich or such a big deal in their profession or in their business, or not merely their business, but the industry that they're in. Yeah, those guys, people still pay attention to them. And those guys, you'll notice, they make a concerted effort to fool people into thinking that they're younger. Yeah. Look at a guy like Bob Iger, he's the head of Disney, right? Bob Iger, I forget how old he is. He's in his 60s, right? But that guy looks really good. He looks like 50 something, right? Well, you think that was by accident? No, he made a concerted effort to look like that. It's you can tell the clothes and the haircut, and you can tell that he does some heavy duty grooming of his face and whatnot, all kinds of treatments to make himself look as young as possible. Because yeah, he's in his 60s, but he wants to look a decade younger because he knows that a man in his 60s is considered over. And so he's trying to fool people. Just like a woman who's in her 40s, wears all kinds of makeup and uses all kinds of treatments to pretend that she's still in her 30s. Because that wall. Women hit it in their 30s, men when they hit 60. And it's the same for everyone, okay? So that's why it's quite the shock. A guy in his 50s, he's at his peak, just as a woman who's in her early 30s, she's 30, 32, she feels at her peak, and then that wall, bam, that's what happens, okay? Now, family life, you want to have like 2 toddlers or 2 small children, because like I said, and in this plan, I say that you should have children when you're in your 40s, okay? You want to be married when you're 50, you want to be married to somebody at least 20 years younger. I am. My wife is 23 years younger than me. And you want to have a couple of other women in your rotation. And yeah, definitely, at least a couple of others, okay? And always like changing, always varying, okay? And any girl gives you a hassle, just next her, and you'd be surprised. When you're at this age, 50, and you're dressed nicely, okay? Like, look, my regular outfit is like a t-shirt and jeans and sneakers and a baseball cap, right? So I don't look that good. But sometimes for various reasons, I have to dress up relatively nicely. I wear slacks, nice button-down shirt, nice sports jacket. I look good. My hair is a little bit of a mess right now, but imagine that my hair is like well cut and I look well groomed. Women automatically will like pay attention to me. Yeah. And young girls too. Yeah, young girls, I mean like 20, 25. Yeah. Yeah, because they sense it. They know it, that you're at your peak. You're peaking. They know it. Huh? And it pulls at them. Simple as that. Okay. Now at this time, insofar as your friends are concerned, you want to have at least 1 true friend and have 3 friends you can call in an emergency and 25 acquaintances that'll show up to any house party. Okay. More importantly, this is, and I should have added another column insofar as your social life. This is going to be your peak of your social life, okay? And this is the time in your life when you're going to have the widest number of acquaintances. Acquaintances, mind you, they're not friends, okay? They're just people you know. Always make that bright line distinction between people you know and friends. The fact of the matter is, when you're young, when you're a child, a small child, and a teenager, it's easy to make friends, very good friends, and you have a wonderful time. Because what happens is that when you're young, you have all the time in the world to devote to these friends. And some of them become very close, and some of them, you spend a lot of time together, but they become nothing, right? Then later on in your 20s, you have less time. And in your 30s and your 40s and 50s, less and less and less time. And that's the point. See, what happens is that as you get older, you have less time for your friends because you have other responsibilities, other people in your life, things that you're trying to achieve. And so you're going to have less and less time. And what will happen is that the friends you made when you were young, in your teenage years, in your 20s, those are the ones who are going to last you into your 50s and 60s. Okay? And to tell you the truth, if you lose touch with your friends after age 30, 40, you're not going to make any new friends. Now, I can tell you this from real experience, my own experience, because I have a few friends from when I was young, but I've lost touch with them. And the fact is, after the age of 40, I haven't made any friends, and not for lack of trying, but what happens is that everybody's just too busy. And I've made a number of acquaintanceships. Is that a correct word? Acquaintances or acquaintanceships? Acquaintances. Okay, fine. I've made a number of acquaintances since the age of 40. But that feeling of like being real close friends, it's not there, okay? We love each other's company. We have a great time, but we're acquaintances. We're not friends. You only make friends when you're young. And that's a fact. And there's nothing to be done about it, and that's the way of the world, okay? Probably because what happens is that as you get older, you look at people and you ask yourself, and they ask themselves, how can this person help me? How can this person help me achieve my goals, my objectives in life? And it's a natural thing that both parties think about. And both parties recognize that the other is thinking about it. And therefore, you can never really be friends. You can be incredibly friendly and have a great time and go vacationing together, go skiing together, have a great time. Yeah, sure, no problem. But you're not going to be friends. In fact, I remember when I was in my 30s, I met a number of guys in some business environment that I was working on. And these guys were terrific guys, and we had a great time, and we just had a blast. We did this, we did that. We had all kinds of good times together, but we weren't friends. And that's a fact. Yeah. And it's a sad part of life, but you've got to accept it, I mean, just as, when you hit like 60, 70, 80, your pecker is just not going to stand up like it used to, and you're going to need like Viagra and Cialis to get it up. Yeah. It's a hard and unpleasant fact of life, but, to pretend that it's not the truth is just stupid. Once you hit 30, 35, you're not really going to make any more friends, okay? You'll make a lot of acquaintances, but they're not going to be your friends, okay? And lose that illusion because it's the truth, okay? Let me just check here. Okay, let's look at your decade of your 40s. In the decade of your 40s, that's when you start to hit your stride, okay? Like I said, between the ages of 40 and 59, that's the peak of your life. Now, I'm not going to talk about the assets or maintenance or fitness or whatnot, because you know more or less what you have to be doing. Insofar as finances are concerned, you see, the decade of your 40s and your 50s, that's when you're going to be able to save the most amount of your income. A lot of guys in their 40s and 50s foolishly spend that money that they could save by buying the big house with the very large overhead. Don't fall for that mistake, okay? In the finances part, the green column, I say that, between ages of 40 and 50, you ought to be saving between 33 and 50% of your net income, Okay, that's a huge fucking chunk of money, right? You should definitely be saving that kind of money in your 40s and 50s. But what happens is a lot of guys, how can I put this? See, once you start hitting the stride of your career, all of a sudden your income just shoots the moon. It's the weirdest thing because, like, I've talked to a lot of guys and they all say the same thing, that they were doing their job, their business, whatever. They were in their career and whatnot, and they were in their 30s and they were working and they were making good money. But all of a sudden, in their 39, 40, 42, somewhere around there, all of a sudden, their money, their income, went hockey stick on them. It just really shot the moon out of the fucking blue. Okay. Yeah. What happens is that it's when you hit 40 and above, the market starts to reprice you and it starts to pay more to you, not because you're so smart, but because you have more experience, because the experience you have pays off. Okay. Because this is assuming, of course, that you've been paying attention to your business and you've been making observations about your business. And then all of a sudden, it's the weirdest thing. At like age 40 or so, things start to really click. And you'll be surprised that you might have been in a business for 10 years or something, 15 years, 20 years. But it'll be only at age 40 where all of a sudden you'll understand shit. I mean, you'll really understand shit. It'll sort of like lock into place in your head. And you'll realize, oh, this is how I put it together. And I make a boatload of cash. Then you'll be really surprised because it'll seem to you that it's so obvious, and you'll ask yourself, how the fuck didn't I realize this before when I was 35, 30, or even 25, 20? What the fuck? How come now at 40? Well, there you go. It's just one of those things. And it happens to every guy. I've talked to a lot of different guys about this thing, and a lot of them say the same thing. They're like, yeah, it's sort of like all made sense when I was like 40. I talked to like an investment banker one time about this very issue. And he was saying, yeah, he was doing his job and making great money, right? But it was only when he hit 42, if I recall correctly, the conversation I had with him, that all of a sudden he said that it made sense. It became clear what was going on, and he made a boatload of cash. Okay, so yeah, it's just one of those weird things. And so what happens is that when you start making all kinds of money at that age, right? Your income shoots up, and a lot of guys foolishly spend that money, and you want to avoid that. You avoid it like the plague. Okay, when all of a sudden your income starts to shoot up because of this this intersection of your brains and your experience and everything all of a sudden making sense and fitting together and becoming really clear, you want to save that extra income. You want to save as much of it as you possibly can. Okay, because like my suggestion is that you always be saving money, right? But at that age when the money really shoots the moon, you want to be saving as much as possible. And by the way, when I say save 33% during the decade of your 40s and 50% during the decade of your 50s, that's like a guideline, but that's like a bare minimum. If you can easily save 50%, 60, 70%, do it. Don't be dumb. Because when there's sun out, make hay. Those 2 decades, those are the decades where you make hay, where you get the money that's going to last you. Earlier I said that that you should have cash on hand, investable assets, of enough money to see you through 10, 15, 20 years of expenses. This is the time that you get that hunk of cash in your 40s and 50s. Absolutely. This is the time. Okay. Now, I say that you should, when you hit 50, you should have a couple of toddlers, family life. When you're 40, you shouldn't have a family. You should start thinking of having a family when you hit 40. Okay, you should be thinking to yourself, yeah, I'm 40 years old. I've got my career more or less in hand. I know where the money's coming from. I'm psychologically stable. I have my shit more or less organized. I have a fairly clear bead on the world and my profession and who I am. Now is the time to start looking for a woman to have a family with. Okay, when you're 40. Yeah. By the time you're 40, you should have had at least 2 serious relationships behind you, but serious relationships in the sense that maybe you were living together and stuff like that, but you really weren't going to marry her. She wasn't really the one. She was just the right now kind of girl, not Miss Right, just Miss Right Now. You want to be at age 40, that's when you want to be starting to look seriously to get married and have kids. And you should have I put there 4 other girls in your rotation. Yeah, that's reasonable. 4 other girls that you have around, fuck buddies or maybe a little bit more serious or whatnot. Yeah. And by the way, the obvious question always arises, where do you find these girls? Where do you find these girls? Yeah, easy. Your acquaintances, see? Your male acquaintances. You have male acquaintances of different sorts, Sometimes it might be that lawyer that you work with, or that accountant that you have. Sometimes it might be, the guy you play squash with, or whomever, just any random acquaintance. And what you do is you say to him, he's probably got a girlfriend or a wife, and you say, hey, let's go to dinner. I mean, we always just like meet up to talk about accounting or legal shit or play squash. Why don't we just go to dinner? Bring your wife, and maybe your wife has a friend. That's the key issue. Maybe your wife has a friend, or your girlfriend has a friend, or whatever. Or yeah. And make it a nice foursome, and we can have dinner, a nice place, and just to make it really attractive. You say, oh, I'll pay. Let me invite you. Maybe the guy does something nice to you. He helps you out somehow, and you say, oh, I really want to pay you back. Let me buy you dinner, you and your wife, and maybe your wife has like a girlfriend, and we can make it a nice quartet, because right now I'm sort of like between girlfriends, and you can tell him, right? And this guy will tell his girlfriend or his wife, right? And what'll happen? The wife will instantly know some friends of hers that are single, and they'll be quality, especially if the guy is a quality guy. Because of course, if he's a fucking bum, his girlfriend is probably a skank, and you're gonna wind up with a skank. Who wants that? No, you meet quality people by way of knowing quality people, and those quality people are usually professionals of some sort or another. Professionals that you interact with socially, or professionals you interact with, let me phrase that, professionals you interact with professionally, and that bleeds into a social life. That's how you do it, okay? I mean, I can tell you right now, well, I don't want to get in too personal in my own case, so I'm not going to discuss that. But that's how you do it, okay? Okay, let me give it this. This is something that happened to me years ago. This happened, I don't know, 15 years ago. I worked with a woman, and she was married, and she was a lovely person, okay? And I had no designs on her whatsoever. And somehow we were talking, and we were just having a good time. And I said to her, "Hey, why don't you invite your husband and you and me, and if you've got a girlfriend, let's all go out to dinner." And I told her I'm between girlfriends, jokingly, right? And she laughed, and we went out to dinner. Her husband, and her girlfriend, who was this model who was fucking gorgeous, right? She was a lingerie model, so she had a body like you couldn't believe, right? And we wound up dating for a while. Yeah, and that's something that happened. And you see, the relationship I had with this woman, it was a business relationship, okay? And she was a lovely person, but it was like non-sexual at all. I mean, no romantic interest at all. And more to the point, I made it clear to her, see? Because when I invited her to dinner, I said, why don't you and your husband come with me to dinner, okay? I mean, obviously, I don't have any kind of romantic interest in her if I'm inviting her fucking husband now, right? Yeah. And because of that, because I made it really clear that I wasn't hitting on her, I was just inviting her to a nice social event, the 4 of us having dinner. She got me a quality girl. Yeah, of course, because she thought highly of me because I wasn't hitting on her. Not at all. I was just saying, yeah, I like you. You've talked to me about your husband, which she had, and he seems like a great guy. So let's go to dinner, and it'd be weird if it's just the 3 of us. So can you invite like a 4th, like another woman, some girlfriend of yours, and we can all have a wonderful time? And we did. And later I banged this girlfriend and dated her for a while. And it was fantastic. You see what I mean? That's how you go about doing it. That's how you get a nice girl. okay? And you do this with every professional acquaintance you have, okay? And systematically. And here's something else that, parenthetically, I'm a great believer in spreadsheets. I'm a great believer in making lists and organizing my life and the things that I have to do by way of lists. Because a lot of times what happens is that you forget things. Things fall by the wayside. You don't pay attention to stuff. But when you write it down on a spreadsheet, on a list, right? Then, and you constantly check that list, right? Then you remember stuff. And you can go about doing things systematically. Systematically in what sense? In an orderly sense, in a systemized sense. And this step, and then this step, and then that step, and then the other step. See? Do this. Do the following exercise. You've got a circle of professional acquaintances. You're a lawyer, you're a doctor, you're this, that, the other. You're friendly with all these people. They're professional acquaintances. They're not friends. They're people that you hire for different things, right? Make a list of all of them, okay? And then right next to them, figure out, well, are they married or not, girlfriend or not? You probably know because, in the interaction, the casual conversation, it usually comes up, right? And so note this down and then make a list. And then figure out, how could I get so that these two people, the professional acquaintance I have, be it male or female, and their partner, be it girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, whatever, how can I go out with both of them and a third person? How can I get them to introduce me to a third person? Okay? And do it systematically. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised, number one, that you have a very large acquaintance of these professional people. And you'd be surprised too that they will be happy to join you for dinner in some restaurant with the fourth person. Because what happens is that usually these like professional women or women who are married or girlfriends of professional guys that they're going to have other professional women in their social circle who don't have a man in their lives. And they're going to be constantly bitching and moaning about it, right? And so this will be a perfect opportunity for them to present them. And you see, the person who's doing the matchmaking, she will get bonus points from the friend. Let me give you an example. See, the professional woman I knew back in the day, her name was Paula. I'm going to tell you their names so that there isn't confusion. The woman's name was Paula, right? And her husband's name was Enrique, and he was a great guy. I'd actually gone to high school with him for a year. He hadn't been in my same class, like in a parallel class, but anyway, he was a great guy. And so Paula and Enrique, and what happened is that Paula had this friend called Andrea. Now, and she invited, of course, Andrea, so she would be the fourth, okay? So it would be Paula and Enrique and me and Andrea, right? And the four of us had dinner, and then later me and Andrea, I got her number, of course, and then later on I called her and we dated and whatnot. And so the key issue was, Paula invited Andrea, and I, of course, never heard that conversation, but I can imagine how it went. It was like, oh, I know this great guy called Gonzalo. He's just a terrific guy. I work with him. He's just wonderful, gentlemanly, and whatnot. And we're going to go to dinner. And I want to introduce you to him. And we're going to go to dinner at this lovely restaurant. And it really was a lovely restaurant, right? And of course, what is Andrea going to say? She's going to say, number one, yes, because it's not me calling her up on a date. It's her friend, Paula. So automatically, she's going to go to a dinner where her friends are there. So she's going to be relaxed about it. It's not going to be stressful. And yeah, it's a blind date, but from her point of view, she's going out with Paula and her husband, Enrique, whom she already knows. And so it'll be a fun time for her, for Andrea, right? And what'll happen too is that, suppose the four of us had gotten together and it was a bust, that I was a complete asshole or a jerk or just an idiot, right? Paula and Andrea later would have said, oh, I'm sorry, he was such a jerk and he's so boring or so stupid or so gauche or whatever, right? But Andrea wouldn't have blamed Paula for it, right? She would have said, oh, it was just bad luck. Or perhaps if I'd been perfectly polite and funny and everything, but Andrea and I just didn't click, later Paula and Andrea would have said, oh, it didn't click. But see, even in the worst case scenario, Andrea is going to think very well of Paula, okay? Because Paula included Andrea in this little get together at this very nice restaurant. Even if the the dinner of the four of us had been a complete disaster, and there was no reason to think that, okay? But even if it had, Andrea still would have been like, oh, this was terrific, okay? And so Andrea will always have the incentive to accept Paula's invitation, you see? And I'm just referring to these two women in particular, but you can extrapolate it to any kind of situation like this. The person making the matchmaking, she will always come out good. Even if the date is a disaster, she'll always come out looking good. So she has the incentive to do so, because Andrea will feel that Paula is trying to help her find a guy. You see? And that's how it works. And that's why that's the way to find new people in your life, especially more women in your life. You know, now that I think about it and talk about this, I think I'm going to make a video about this. I'll make a video for Patreon about this in some future date. I think that people would enjoy just this particular issue. But you see what I'm saying? Okay. So anyway, at this point in time, to go back to how you budget your life and plan your life, okay? At this time when you hit 40, you should have had a couple of serious relationships, not quite living together perhaps, but like serious enough, right? And when you hit 40, my thinking is that you should be thinking of seriously getting married, okay? Or let me phrase it. Having kids and then get married as a result of that, okay? Never get married and then have kids. That's something else. Never get married and then have kids. No, get her pregnant first and then marry her. Yeah, because nowadays it doesn't really matter if you get some girl pregnant and then marry her. There's no social stigma or any shit like that. Hell, there are lots of couples that have a kid and they never get married, okay? Never get married unless there's a kid involved. There's no reason for it. And what happens if she can't have a kid? You're stuck with a woman who's your lawful wedded wife and the legal hassle, okay? And no kid. No kid, therefore no purpose to getting married, because the whole purpose of getting married is in order to protect the kid, or kids, plural, okay? You never get married just for the sake of getting married. There's a purpose to it. There's a reason for it. So many guys just decide, oh, I'm going to get married. Why? You know, at worst, they say, oh, I'm going to get married and then we'll have some kids later on, but we're just going to enjoy ourselves first. Why? Just enjoy yourself now and for the next few years without getting married. And then when you get her pregnant, then get married, okay? If she demands it, okay? If you're smart and you want to keep your legal affairs tidy, you don't marry her, period. I mean, you marry somebody if you want to lock them down, okay? One way or the other. But if you're not sure or whatever, don't do it. Get her knocked up, but don't marry her. Don't be dumb, okay? Years ago, I was in a situation where I got somebody pregnant, okay? And she eventually had the kid. And she wanted to use that pregnancy to lock me down. I was like, ain't gonna happen. I'll support you and everything, but I'm not gonna marry you, okay? And I'm glad I didn't, because she turned around and convinced some other guy that he was the father. When I knew that I was the father because of obvious reasons, because the math, you know, the days and whatnot. Yeah, I was the father, and she convinced this other guy that he was the father. I think later on he caught on, okay? But too late, you know? Women do all kinds of nasty shit, okay? So, and it's not because they're women, it's just because they're people. Because people, human beings, men and women, do nasty shit. I mean, fuck, Hitler was a guy, right? But have you ever looked at, say, Catherine de Medici? Hitler ain't got nothing on Catherine de Medici. Yeah. People are evil. People do nasty shit, okay? And so, yeah, you never want to get married unless you're absolutely sure. And if somebody tries to marry, gets knocked up and tries to lock you into marriage, you walk away from that situation. I mean, don't be dumb, okay? So anyway, going back to this, in your 30s, okay, to go back to this, hang on, oops, let me just fix this real quick. There we go. Okay, so your 30s, you know, let me just, I'll go through the 30s and then I'll do the 20s. Your 30s, this is the period when you are completing your apprenticeship in whatever industry or business you're involved in. Because what I'm going to say in your 20s is that Your 20s is a year to figure out what you want to do with your life, but figure out what you want to do insofar as your business, your occupation is concerned. Okay. A lot of guys start out, at age 20, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. And by the age 30, 10 years later, they know exactly what business they want to be involved in. Okay. And your 20s is when you figure out what kind of business you want to be involved in. And your 30s is when you sort of like cross that period of apprenticeship and get real good at whatever business or industry you're involved in. Okay. You really learn it. Okay. But it's still a learning period. Okay. Now, at this stage, insofar as fitness is concerned, you ought to be able to run a marathon. Yeah. You ought to be running, say, 25 miles a week or the equivalent cardio, right? See, the important thing is cardio. When you get older, see, cardio exercise is harder. You want to be developing your cardio in your 30s and 40s at the latest, okay? 50s and beyond, you got to be careful because you can drop dead of a heart attack, okay? No fucking around. And so you want to avoid that fate of dropping dead of a heart attack at 52. Yeah, then you want to be working out, working cardio in your 20s and 30s especially. 30s is sort of like the last gasp insofar as real serious cardio workout. Of course, there are professional athletes, for instance, in whatever sport, who can keep on doing heavy cardio into their 40s, 50s, and 60s, sure, but they spent all their teens and 20s developing an enormous heart that's incredibly efficient, okay? Sure, they can keep on doing that shit into their 50s, 60s, and 70s, but you, a regular guy, not so much. So your 30s are when you want to be developing that, okay? Now, insofar as your assets are concerned, you're not going to have much assets in your 30s, but the one thing you want to have done is be free of any debt, any and all debt, student debt, most especially. Now, the student debt is the nastiest piece of shit in the world because basically you're paying for accreditation. You're paying a lot of money. You are overpaying for accreditation. That's ultimately what's going on, okay? Now, you went to college between 18 and 22. Maybe you went to grad school after that. You're sitting on, say, $100,000 worth of debt or more. Your mission during your 20s and 30s is to pay that off as quickly as possible. You want to hit 40 with zero debt, no debt at all. I'm not talking about mortgage debt. I'm not talking about debt that you incur for some asset that you are purchasing, like mortgages, okay? I mean, mortgage debt is the easiest one. That's not the same thing because mortgage debt is really balanced out. I'm really talking about unsecured debt. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Unsecured debt, like credit card debt, like student loans, you got to work that shit off, and it's not producing any obvious income. A mortgage, when you buy a rental property with a mortgage, right? Well, that rental property, it generates an income. And a lot of times that income can pay off the mortgage. Okay, that is an asset-backed loan. That's perfectly fine. Okay, an unsecured loan is like student debt, like personal debt, credit card debt and whatnot. You got to pay that shit off, and it's not giving you an asset that generates an income. You could say that technically a college degree is an asset that generates an income, but it's kind of like stretching it. Like a rental property that you buy with a mortgage, with a loan, with debt, but that actually does produce an income. Now it doesn't directly, okay? Because your college degree, I don't see your college degree giving you a dividend every quarter. Now does it? No, of course not, okay? It might help you improve your situation insofar as getting a better position in some company or other, but it's not producing an income. A rental property is. So you got to keep in mind debt that is unsecured, like student debt, like credit card debt, and debt that is secured, like a mortgage debt. That's totally different, okay? By the time you're 40, at the absolute latest, you want to be debt free. I personally was totally debt free by age 28. I've never had any debt since the age of 28. Of course, I've gotten involved in mortgages, okay? But again, I'm talking about unsecured debt, okay? I have never had any unsecured debt since the age of 28. Actually, that's not true. Like the biggest unsecured debt I've had since the age of 28 has been my electric bill. It's 150 euros a month. Yeah, because that is technically unsecured debt, right? So yeah, but you see my point. Yeah, you don't want to have $100,000 over your head when you're fucking 50. Fuck no. I don't have, like I said, I don't have any debt whatsoever. I have mortgage debt, on part of my property portfolio. But again, that debt is being paid for by the income from the rental property. So for me, it's net zero. So I'm hunky dory. You hit 40 and you still have debt, you're in trouble because you're not going to be able to accrue the assets that you need to pay for your 60s and 70s and 80s. That's the point. So you have to set yourself a target, a year whereby you are done with all debt. The sooner the better. Okay, it's like it's like anything. It's like anything in the sense that, see, it is better to take the hit early than later. Don't postpone paying off unsecured debt like student loans, like credit card debt. You got into a student loan, it was fucking stupid, and you realize shortly thereafter, you might even have realized it while in college. Well, good on you, but too late. Now, the point is you want to get rid of that debt as quickly as possible. So the smart thing is to live like a monk and pay it off as quickly as possible so that you're done with that shit. Because you see, what happens is that student debt, if it's prolonged, the interest will kill you. How many people do you know, and I bet you know a lot, who graduated with, say, $50,000 worth of student loans, and they paid the minimum for years and years, decades. 10 years later, with the interest and a couple of missed payments and here and there and that kind of thing and penalties and whatnot, they owe $60,000 worth of debt instead of 50 like they had when they started. And over the 10 years, they paid, $70,000, and they are in more debt than they were before. I mean, I've heard plenty of stories like that. You probably have. And if you've never heard a story like that, just Google this shit on YouTube or wherever, and you'll find plenty of cases of people who are in this boat. It's a never ending cycle because it's the interest. The interest is what kills you. In a loan, the interest kills you. And interest is based on time. It's a function of time. That's why you want to pay off all your unsecured debt as quickly as possible. And you want to be sacrificing today so that tomorrow you don't have to pay. You who are 25, you want to be living like a fucking monk in the cheapest room possible and paying off that debt as quickly as possible, that student debt as quickly as possible, so that when you're 30, 35, you don't have any debt, and the money that used to go to pay for the student debt, you can devote it to buying assets that will generate an income. You see? That's what you want to be doing. Don't be dumb. Okay? Okay, now, when you are 30 and above, you want to be saving 25% of your net income, minimum. Okay? And a lot of guys say, oh, I can't do it. I don't earn enough. Bullshit. You can't. Everybody can. See, what you have to do is adjust your living expenses. Simple as that. See, if you're earning, let's just say, to make the numbers easy, say you're earning $4,000 a month, okay? And after taxes, you're bringing home, say, $2,800, okay? $2,800 is not a lot of money, sure. 25% of that is $700. Now that's a chunk of change out of 2,800. But believe me, you can live very well on 2,100. You think, no, I can't, it's impossible. Oh yeah, try. You'd be surprised. Yeah. You're living in a nice apartment. Yeah, but how much time do you actually spend in the apartment? Huh? Live someplace cheaper. Save. Don't be dumb. See? Because see, the more you save now or dedicate that money to pay off debt, see, the more you'll have later. At the end of the day, in your 30s, all you care about is figuring out the future whereby you're going to make as much money as possible. That's the point of it. In your business or your career, whatever, okay? Whatever industry you decide to go into, well, you want to be using your 30s to figure out how to maximize your income into the future, thinking to yourself that your 40s and your 50s are going to be when you peak. So your 30s, you can afford to live like a monk. On top of that, you're not going to have a family. You've made up your mind that you're going to start looking for a wife to have kids, not a wife per se, but rather the mother of your children. That's what you're going to start looking for. You're going to start looking for her at age 40. So your 30s, who gives a shit if you have a fairly crappy car and live in a not very nice neighborhood? Who cares? See? I mean, think. You're thinking about the future, okay? Now, Insofar as your career is concerned, your apprenticeship is probably going to be completed, okay? And you're going to be in your first position of real leadership. Now, this could be either you are in a corporate structure where you're climbing a corporate ladder, or you have a business of some sort. But see, everybody who starts a business, they had to learn about that industry somehow or other, okay? Everyone. I mean, you look at Mark Zuckerberg, the fucker had to learn about computer programming and shit, okay? Everybody has to go through a period of learning about the business that they are involved in, okay? When you hit 30, your apprenticeship ought to be completed. You should know, you should have the basic tools and the basic insights of your industry, okay? And you should be working towards your first position of real leadership, either in some corporate structure or having a small business of your own, okay? Your 30s are when you hone your skills and you build your reputation by way of contacts. The network of contacts, your 30s, that's when you really have to ramp that shit up. You really have to go out there systematically and meet as many people as possible. When I say systematically, what do I mean? In a manner that is organized. Writing down the names of all the people you meet, having a little log, a little spreadsheet or whatever of all their names, all their emails, all their cell phone numbers. Yeah. And insofar as family, you don't have time for a family, not in your 30s. Your goal is to build your career or your business, okay? Now, insofar as women are concerned, your apprenticeship, insofar as women is concerned, it's done when you hit 30. Yeah. In your 30s, you're dating someone semi-seriously, but it's not really seriously. She's not the mother of your child, okay? Because you're 30 and you're going to be dating somebody who's 27 or something like that, right? She is going to be all up to the gills in her own business or her own career or whatever the fuck. And you'll be having a good time, but she's not going to be the mother of your children. Yeah. The mother of your children is always going to be a woman a lot younger than you, okay? I've been thinking about this a lot because I'm working on like a nonfiction piece about this whole shit about the deregulated sexual marketplace, right? And the fact is that in this day and age, in this society that we're living in, see, the only women who are in their 20s who want to have babies are women who are going to be going for more successful men. And that kind of level of success is only achieved when a guy is in his 40s and 50s. And they've sort of reconciled, these women have sort of reconciled themselves to that. That they're like, yeah, the father of my children is going to be an older guy. I've been noticing it for different reasons that I'm not going to get into now. But women who are dating a guy roughly their age, they're not thinking of family. Yeah. And they don't want a family. Yeah. And it's as simple as that. They're going to be professionals. Yeah. They're just not going to be interested in it. Okay. Now, in your 30s, you have to be paying attention to the friends that you have, noticing which ones you still have. And something I didn't note here, but I'll tell you, you have to cultivate them. Make the effort to cultivate your true friends. Okay. Because their lives are gonna start to get busy. Your life is gonna start to get busy, and you'll start to slowly lose touch. I lost touch with a lot of friends that I had during my 30s, and I regret it. Sure, I'm not gonna lie to you. I lost touch with them because I thought, oh, they'll always be around. But what happened was that we grew so distant, and during the 30s, they changed and I changed so much that when we reconnected later in our 40s and 50s, we changed so much that we were sort of like strangers to one another. Okay, that happens. And so you want to be maintaining your friendships. Okay, not by partying, but by like talking, by spending time together, doing something where you can interact. Partying and shit like that, you can't really interact when you're at some club or some shit like that. But when you're hanging out, like say watching TV together on a lazy Sunday afternoon, you can interact a lot like that, like talking, really talking about shit. Okay. And make sure when you do these interactions that there aren't other people around that will inhibit the interaction, like women or whatnot. Yeah, because you see, you got some close friend, and what'll happen is that, see, you haven't seen him in a while, several weeks perhaps, maybe a couple of months or so, right? And you call him up, and he's going to have a lot of shit on his mind that he'll want to talk to you about. And you get together with him, and like your girlfriend's around, or some women or whatever the fuck, and they'll be inhibited and they won't tell you what's really on their mind. And so it'll be like a superficial interaction, and it won't nourish the relationship. Your friend will just not feel comfortable expressing what's on his mind, and he'll probably have a lot on his mind, but they'll be like the girlfriend or the acquaintances, some random acquaintances, right? I mean, you throw a barbecue, and so he can't really talk to you, right? No, you got to do it one-on-one. You got to make the effort to have that one-on-one time with these true friends, so that you can maintain the relationship, so that one-on-one alone, he can tell you, I'm doing this job, but I really fucking hate it, and I don't know what to do, you know, and that kind of interaction, which is much more profound and much more important to both of you. Okay. I mean, think of it from your point of view. You haven't seen a friend that you like a lot and that you are really close to, and he calls you up to meet up, and you're like, yeah, I'll be able to talk to him about the problems I'm having, and I don't know what to do, and I need advice. And you go there, you show up at his house, and it's like a party, and there are a bunch of other strangers. And so what do? Well, you get a drink, and you have the barbecue or the chicken wings or whatever the fuck, but you don't really interact with your friend. And you're like, hey, guy, how's it going, dude, man? And you give him a hug or whatever the fuck, but you don't really interact. It's bullshit. It's a bullshit interaction. You see what I mean? You want to avoid that. You want to create the circumstances where your friend can tell you what's really going on in his life, and you can tell him what's really going on in your life, because you're not going to be able to see each other that often, because you're both going to be so goddamn busy with shit. And you do this, you maintain the friendship like this, and the friendship will endure beyond the 30s and into the 40s and 50s. Okay? Believe me when I talk to you about it. I regret that I didn't do this in the past. I thought I was hanging on to my friends and talking to them and partying and whatnot, but I really wasn't. Okay? And I regret it. And, there's nothing to be done about it now. It's way too late. Okay? But now I know better. And so I'm telling you. Okay? Okay. So, and your 20s finally, the starting point. Okay? I'm guessing not many of you are in your 20s, but I'll just do this to round it off, and be organized and shit. And then I'll take questions. Now, when you're in your 20s, you're young and stupid and finding your place in the world, right? And so far as fitness is concerned, you're going to be great, okay? Assuming that you're not some overweight fat fuck, okay? If you're an overweight fat fuck, like a lot of us are, because right now I feel overweight. I'm roughly I'd say about 10, 12 pounds overweight. I gotta lose it. I got a belly here that jiggles a little bit. So if you got a belly that jiggles, you're a fat fuck, and you gotta lose it. Okay. I'm working on it. But anyway, insofar as assets, you don't have any fucking assets now, do you? Yeah. And so far as your finance is concerned, good fucking luck. But you're in your 20s. You don't know shit from Shinola. You're just trying to figure out shit, right? This is the time to try out different career paths. Now, I just want to point out, it's never too late to try out different career paths. Never. There's always, and no matter how old you are, you can always try out a new career path. Okay. But always be thinking of it like Tarzan swinging through the jungle. Tarzan never lets go of the previous vine before grabbing onto the next one, right? No. He holds on to the old vine, and only when he's got the next one firmly in hand, that's when he lets go, right? Be exactly the same. If you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s even, and you want to go in a new direction insofar as your career, more power to you, but be aware. Don't let go of some shit before you have the next shit firmly in hand. Okay. And when I mean firmly in hand, I'm talking about like income. I'm talking about like the whole shebang. Okay. Okay. So anyway, in your 20s, it's when you try out different shit. Okay. In your 20s, it doesn't matter if you go splat in anything. Okay. You're Tarzan and you're swinging and you let go of the old vine to grab onto the next one, and whoop, the next one sort of like vanishes and you go splat at the bottom of the jungle. Doesn't matter. Your 20s, you're 25, 27, who gives a shit? It doesn't matter. You can blow 2-3 years in your 20s. It's not going to make a lick of difference in your life. Okay. To those of you who are in your 20s and you're like worried about shit, your 20s are the gimme years. Gimme is an expression in golf. Okay. When your ball is so close to the cup and you're like, just give me the hole, and you're like, okay, fine. It's sort of like it's sort of like a pass. Okay. Don't worry about your 20s. Okay. But in your 20s, at some point, you should be beginning your apprenticeship in your chosen career path. You should be beginning it, and by the time you hit 29, 30, you should be kind of like ending it. Okay. You should definitely end your apprenticeship period by 35. Okay. I mean, every fucking profession, even doctors, end their apprenticeship by age 35. If by age 35 you still haven't settled in a fucking profession, you're a fucking idiot. Okay. I mean, I'm not talking about changing careers. I'm talking about like starting on the first one. By age 35, you should be somewhere. Okay. Okay. Um, the most important thing I've noticed, okay, is in your 20s, you should figure out if you're an insider or an outsider. That's why I wrote there in this thing. And this is a curious thing. See, I'm an outsider. Now, what's an outsider? Okay. There are people who thrive in a structured work environment. They thrive in a established business, in a corporate career ladder type situation. And there are other guys who do not. And in fact, these other guys are outsiders who love to start up new shit. Okay. I have never been able to work inside a corporate environment. I am temperamentally unsuited to it. My brother-in-law, the husband of my sister, well, he's an insider. He is a corporate guy. Okay. And he's a very smart customer. I think I would say that he's smarter than me, to tell you the truth. I mean, just more IQ points. And he's an incredibly hard worker and disciplined, and he's a great guy, right? But he knows that he does not work well on his own. He knows that he is not cut out to be an entrepreneur. I am. I'm like temperamentally totally suited to being an entrepreneur. Okay. I'm one of those guys who prefers to be the captain of his ship, no matter how small the ship, rather than being the first mate of an ocean liner. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I am just thrilled to have control, total control of my destiny. And I cannot stand having a boss. That's why I can't work in a corporate environment. Sure, if you put me there at the very top, at the very tippity top, yeah, I'll be delighted. But, I mean, it would be unearned, right? And so that's why I know that I'm always going to be an outsider, because that's who I am. In your 20s, you got to figure that out. It's very important, because guys who are outsiders are going to start their own businesses, no matter how modest the business. I mean, it could be just a small restaurant or a hair salon or some shit like that. Or it could be, Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs is another example. He's a guy who could not work for anybody else. He never did, in fact, right? He never worked for somebody else. He was always the boss, because temperamentally he needed that shit. There is the tendency in our society to make a hero out of the guy who's an outsider and make the guy who's an insider some sort of chump. This is a huge mistake. Okay. Neither one is better than the other. And in fact, both are necessary for a functioning society. And you cannot have too many outsiders. You have to have a number of insiders, the guys who work well in a corporate environment. Okay. I mean, it's like you can't have that many chief. You have to have some Indians. You know what I'm saying? So, insofar as this issue of insider outsider, it's important that you figure out who you are and be honest with yourself. Don't fall for the temptation to say, oh, I'm really an outsider, I'm an entrepreneur, when you're really not. And you'll know, okay? Some guys are completely panicked by the notion that they are the ones who are ultimately responsible for some business or company or whatever, and other guys are just thrilled by it and energized by it, okay? But you got to know yourself. You got to look into your heart and say, I really want this, or I definitely do not want this, okay? And be honest with yourself, like the running thing, I was telling you about. I did that running shit for God knows how many months. It wasn't quite a year, but it was like a good 8 months or so. And I would like write down, I had this little spreadsheet that I'd printed up and pasted on my kitchen door, where I'd write down how many kilometers I ran that day and such, right? And I did that shit for I don't know how long, right? And I fucking hated it. I mean, I hated it, right? And I kept on doing it, and it just hated it, and just so unhappy, right? And I did it because I thought it was something that I liked and that I should like, that I'll do this shit until I finally like it. You know what I mean? And when I finally ran those 11 miles, the equivalent of 11 miles, and realized, fuck this shit, I don't like this shit. I don't want to do this shit anymore. I ran roughly half a marathon, and I fucking hate it. And I'm so bored that my head is about to explode. What the fuck? I started playing squash shortly thereafter. I hadn't played squash since college, right? Started playing squash shortly thereafter. Shitloads better time, and that was that, and didn't look back. But my point, I was fooling myself. I was fooling myself that, because I was thinking to myself that I wanted to run a marathon. I wanted to get that little medal of completing a marathon. I wanted to run the London Marathon and the New York Marathon and the Boston Marathon and the Paris Marathon and the Berlin Marathon. I thought it'd be so cool, and it was something I fucking hated. Okay. You got to be honest with yourself as to whether you're an insider or an outsider. Okay. You got to be real honest, hand to heart. And there's no shame in being an insider, just as there is no virtue in being an outsider. Okay. Understand, there's nothing cool or uncool about being either one. There's nothing good or bad about being either one. They're just different, and different people with different temperaments will fit in different places. And what you want to do is fit, irrespective of where. Fit so that you are comfortable, so that it's not something that you're thinking about or worrying about, but rather just focusing on job climbing, whether it be your own business or working within a corporate environment or some other business of some sort. See what I'm saying? Yeah. In your 20s, again, you don't have any time for a family. Fuck that noise. Like I said, you wait. Your family life should start when you're 40. Don't start it before. Okay. It'll be a big distraction. Okay. And in your 20s, you're casually dating. And a key issue, you should set yourself the target of number closing 5 girls a week. In your 20s, you meet girls all over the place. What'll happen is that you get older, you'll meet less and less of them. Because what happens, of course, is that they start getting married on the one hand, and you lack the opportunities because you are no longer interested in hanging out where all the girls used to be, like clubs and shit like that, because you find it boring. You hit 30 and you're like, fuck that noise. That's just boring. I'm going to be up until like 4 in the morning at some stupid club. Fuck that. I got work tomorrow. You see, that happens all the time. And so when you're in your 20s, you have plenty of opportunities. So what you want to be doing is using that opportunity and forcing yourself to get good at picking up girls, forcing yourself and studying yourself. Okay. You set yourself the target of talking to girls and getting at least 5 phone numbers from girls during a week. Okay. You'd be surprised if you set yourself that goal, you'll achieve it. Okay. I once went through a period where I did that. Okay. When I was like 30, 31. Yeah. It worked. It worked. It was really fucking funny. Yeah. I set myself that goal because I'd gone through a dry patch, a seriously long dry patch. And I was like, fuck this. I moved to New York and I'm like, I'm going to get some pussy. I'm going to get as much pussy as I can. And I set myself that goal of getting girls' numbers and sleeping with at least one new girl a week. And what was shocking was that soon enough I was doing that. And then I hit my apogee. I fucked 7 different girls on 7 consecutive nights. Not kidding. That was in the year 2000. And that was fucking funny. And yeah, and it was discipline. Discipline. Just being disciplined and you can achieve it. Okay. And insofar as friends are concerned, you want to be meeting as many people as possible. Okay. That's what you want to be doing. Now, anyway, this is like a budget of life. Okay. Now, I set these different columns and these different objectives, right? Now, what you should be doing is basically doing the exact same thing, except all of these cells here on this spreadsheet should be empty, and you fill them out. Remember, you start at age 80. You start at age 80 at the top, and you work your way backward, okay? Figure out how you want to end. Margaret Mitchell wrote the novel Gone with the Wind. It's a great novel, great movie. It was the only novel that she ever wrote, but one's enough, one and done, right? Interestingly enough, Margaret Mitchell started writing the book by writing the ending. And it's a very smart way to write a novel. And it's an extremely smart way to write a book. Because see, she knew how it ended at the beginning of the process. And so what happened is that she started writing the chapter before that and the chapter before that. And then she went all the way to the beginning of the novel and wrote the beginning. And she knew where it was all going to end. You see, all of her efforts were geared towards that ending. Very, very wise. You do the same. Set up a spreadsheet like this. And it could be different things. I mean, I put here your life, fitness, assets, finances, career, family life, excuse me, women, friends. Hang on a second. Let me just get a drink of water here. Sorry about that. As I was saying, there are different categories in your life. You can make them different, okay? You don't have to follow these rules, but the point I want to emphasize is start at the end. Where do you want to end up? Imagine yourself at 80. You look in the mirror now and you see yourself as a relatively young guy. You're 40, you're 35, 30, 25, whatever. You look in the mirror, right? Now, ask yourself, do you know some uncle who looks like you but old? That's who you're going to be. Mhm. You want to look at your grandfather, grandfathers if they're still alive, right? Or great uncle or somebody like that, somebody who's old in your own family. And look at him and look at the points where, you know, his face, right? Does it look similar to yours? You want to find a relative who looks similar to yours. And you want to ask yourself, you know, how do I want to be living when I'm his age, when I'm 77, 80, 83? You want to imagine yourself at that age. And that's where you start the process. You start it at the end. What do you want your situation to look like when you are 80, when it's over, when there's nothing that you can do because you're not going to have the physical or mental energy to do anything? And even if you did, the vast majority of people will not take you seriously. They're not, okay? Because remember, when I talk about, like I said before, when I talk about, interacting with the world, it's not the world. It's not inanimate objects you're interacting with. You're interacting with people. And people do not pay attention to a man who is 80. They don't. The only time they pay attention to a man who's 80 is if he's extraordinarily rich. Okay? I mean, like mind-bogglingly rich, right? In the tens of millions to hundreds to billions of, hundreds of millions or billions. Okay, that's the only time they pay attention to an old guy. Okay, Soros, sure, everybody pays attention to him. He's like 90 years old. Okay, but like, you see that old man shuffling down the street, and you look at him and he's got like old clothes and probably doesn't have a pot to piss in. Do you pay attention to him? No, you do not. I mean, at most, you make sure that if the old man topples over, that you'll be there to help the poor bastard until somebody comes to pick him up. But that's pretty much the extent of it, right? Yeah. Nobody's going to give a shit about you when you hit 80. The only man who will care about that 80-year-old version of yourself is the you of today. You have to be taking care of that man. You have to be doing things so that that man that you will become has a fairly decent life. Nobody else is going to do it for him. Okay? And by the time he's 80, he will be too exhausted, too old to do anything for himself. Okay? I mean, keep that in mind. Think about that old man. You want to take care of him. You want his life, his last few years to be happy ones. And you say to yourself, well, I'm 40, I'm 45, I'm 50, I'm too old. No, you're not. See, like I said, age 60, that's the cutoff point. That's the wall for guys. Age 60. Okay? You're 50, you're 40, you got plenty of time. Okay? Think about that old man. You want to look after him. You want to make sure that his life is easy. Okay? Sacrifice for today so that that man whom you will become, isn't just some pathetic, broken down old man shoved off to some state retirement home where there are cockroaches on the food and abuse from the underpaid nurses and no joy, only misery. Think about that. Okay? Okay. So I'm going to take questions. What the hell time is it, by the way? Oh, wow. 2 hours. Yeah. So yeah, you guys got a show today, I think. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you got a lot out of it. I think that this is a very important topic. And so, yeah, let me put everybody's hand down and I'm going to quickly check the questions. As always, just forgive me, but, I don't have a producer who can help me out here. Let me see. What is your current? Okay, let's bring in Mike Harton. Hang on a second. Let me find Mark here. Mike Harton, I hope you're all set. Let me just get to you. And hello,
Hello.
Mike, are you there?
Hello, hello.
How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. I hope you liked the presentation.
Oh, it's great.
I'm glad. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So my question is, I think about like a year ago, you made a video saying that the only reason to get married was to have kids.
Yes.
But then you made another, I think it was a Patreon exclusive, saying that you changed your stance on that it's a completely raw deal. But
Yeah. Yeah.
recently you've been talking more about marriage, like, oh, you should get married, like in this presentation.
Well, yeah, good question. Yeah, what happens is that my thinking has evolved. Okay, and by the way, there's nothing wrong with your thinking evolving about anything. Okay, uh, uh, there's a famous saying that consistency is the hobgoblin of small minds, and that's very true. Okay, don't feel that you have to be consistent all the time. Okay, and the issue of marriage. See, I'm of two minds about it. Uh, we have to look back on what marriage was all about. Marriage was originally instituted so that women and the children that she had with the guy would be protected. The guy wouldn't just knock her up and run off, right?
Yep.
But then what's happened is that the state has become like this bodyguard for women and fucks over guys, right? By way of divorce, rape, and all the rest of it.
Yep.
So we understand that situation. That's grossly unfair, no question. Okay, I mean, even some feminists are coming to realize that it's grossly unfair. But on the other hand, you have this issue that you want to have children and you want to make sure that they're your children. You want to lock down the woman, right?
Mhm.
You, as a guy, want to lock down the woman, not the woman locking you down.
Mhm.
Okay, so sometimes marriage, is useful for that. So I suppose what I'm basically saying is that in general, being married or not married, I think really depends on the couple, on the situation, the relationship between the man and the woman. My thinking is that if you are a man, you should never get married unless the woman you're with is already knocked up, and then get married, right? If you
Yep.
decide to get married.
Mhm.
It, if you're not sure, then don't get married. There's also the legal hassle that if you get married, what's yours becomes hers as well, and she can divorce rape you and all that. So you should be prepared to make sure that she can't take your assets, okay? And that depends for each guy. That's different for each guy, rather. So, I'm really not sure. There's the obvious fact, too, that nobody gives a shit if you're not married, okay? There's no
Mhm.
social stigma. So, and there's clearly a lot of negatives to getting married, legally speaking, if the relationship breaks up. So I'm not really sure, I mean,
Mhm.
I guess that's where my bottom line. And I hate to give you this response, but I hope that my explanation as to my thinking makes you understand why I'm equivocating on this issue.
I understand, but
Yeah.
from my
Go ahead.
thinking that the woman is really into getting married. That personally, I can't see a woman getting pregnant and being happy without being married to the guy.
Yeah. Yeah. There's also the issue of that sometimes you want to marry her so that she won't abort the kid, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
So look, I don't know. It
Mhm.
depends on each guy. Okay.
Mhm.
Marriage as a legal entity is really detrimental to a guy unless he takes some precautions. I urge you to take those precautions if you decide to get married and make sure that your assets, the stuff that's yours, doesn't get stolen by this woman you marry, even if you have a kid with her. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And there
Yeah.
are lots of ways to do it. And also, don't chintz on a lawyer. Get the
Mhm.
best lawyer, okay? And talk to a divorce lawyer before you get married so that you can have a consult with the lawyer and spend 2, 3, 4 hours talking with a lawyer, the divorce lawyer, who can tell you, look, if you want to protect your assets before, do this, this, and that. It'll be different in different jurisdictions and different countries. So that's why I'm not saying what to do, because it's radically different in each place. But a divorce lawyer in your locality will be able to tell you the pitfalls.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's why you don't want to talk to him before you get married. Okay. There's also the issue that sometimes a woman will, desperately want to get married and just to feel secure in the relationship and be comfortable and have the kid and all that. Okay. One thing
Mhm.
for sure, never, never, never spend a boatload of cash on the wedding. Okay. And if she insists
Yeah.
that, you have to spend $100,000 on a wedding, then say, I don't want to marry you.
Yeah.
Simple. Because
Yeah.
if a woman wants to spend a shitload of money on the wedding, then she only gives a shit about the party, but doesn't realize what the relationship, the marriage entails. And so she's not going to do anything about it. And then she's going to wake up and realize, oh, I don't really like it. And, so like the hangover from the party. Okay.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
mean, yeah. Even if you have $100,000 to blow on a stupid wedding, I mean, like say that your net worth is 10 million bucks, right? 100,000 bucks is just 1% of your net worth, no sweat, right? Don't do it. Don't do it, because it's
Mhm.
always a bad sign. That's been my experience, at least.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. From what I heard, like the whole wedding industry just is a total scam. Like how they overcharge for everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Well, look, the only time that you can go whole hog on the wedding is when the parents are paying for it. Then
Uh-huh.
it's somebody else's money, big deal.
Yeah.
But if it's your money, fuck no.
Yeah.
And tell her
Uh,
no. The money is better spent buying property or buying something that will be useful to us in our marriage. If she doesn't come around to that thinking, then no. Then she just cares about the party and ditch her. Okay?
all right. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Great talking to you, Mike. I hope that the content, you've been enjoying it.
yep. Everything's been going great. Yeah.
I'm
All the
so glad.
videos. Yep. Thanks,
I'm so
Coach.
glad. Yeah. Talk to you soon. Take care.
Yep.
Let's see here. We got Sarab Sharma. I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Um, Sarab Sharma. Are you there, Sarab? Because he's got a pretty good question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello. Yeah, Sarab, how's it going?
It's going great, coach. And by the way, you're one of the few people who spelled my name correctly. It's no big deal.
Oh, okay, Sarab then. Okay, good. Good to know. So what's on your mind? You have a great question, so when you hit us with it.
Okay, so right now I'm 25 and I'm easily saving up like more than 25% of my net income. And
Good.
on better days, I save somewhere around 30%. So these are the numbers.
Hmm.
And in my situation, I'm living in like a shared accommodation.
Hmm.
I'm not allowed to have visitors or anything.
Yep.
And I think I'm a fairly decent looking guy. I can get girls, or at least the reaction I get from them is such. So I don't know how to go about this situation because every time I sort of go about hitting up a girl, this question comes in my mind like, oh, I have to spend money to get a place and all those things. And I've done that in the past. I've like spent money on Airbnbs for like a couple of days. So
Hmm.
so this thing, and also second thing is like when I interact with them, most of them I found that they're quite high in the head, that they think that the guy, like you said in your early videos, have to have like three sixes. So I don't know
Yep.
how to display the competency that yeah, this guy is worthy going out with. Like I do a bunch of things, so I want to get like some suggestion. How should I go about this situation? Like saving my money and still be able to manage my way, so it doesn't cost me too much. I hope
That's not possible. Simple as that. Yeah, it's not possible. Okay. It's when you're 25, I take it you're not earning that much money, right?
no, not really. No.
Okay. So when you're 25 and you're not earning that much money, it's just not possible. So you have to make up your mind. Which do you want to do? Save the money or impress girls with a high failure rate? Okay, that's a key
Mm-hmm.
issue. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to keep something else in mind. You're 25. There's no
Yeah.
rush. Okay, there, there's no rush, and it would probably be smarter for you to save money now and invest it properly in setting up a new business or whatever, rental property, whatever you're talking about, whatever is good for your future finances,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
At
Right. Right.
25, see, you can afford to decide, I'm going to check out of the dating market and just concentrate on getting as much money as possible and building my career as much as I can. And when I'm 35 and the income is a lot better, or 30, okay, I mean, you don't have to live 10 years as a monk, then you revisit the issue. And also something else, as I've said it before. See, I don't think it's healthy for a guy not to get laid.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what I was
yeah,
thinking about. Like, how would I get the experience with if I'm not
hire
spinning
a
plates?
prostitute. Hire a prostitute. It's as simple as that.
Really?
Don't get a cheap one. Okay, I did a video on it. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
Okay, look,
Okay.
you got to keep in mind something. See, you're 25. Sex is
Mm.
obviously going to be on the brain, and because
Yeah,
you want sex so badly, you're going to be easy to manipulate. Okay, that's a
definitely,
fact.
man. Yeah.
Now, if you visit a hooker, a prostitute, once a month, twice a month, something like that, at a reasonable amount, whatever sort of like eases you out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then
Mm-hmm.
then you're not going to have that pressure. And more to the point, you're not going to make mistakes and make stupid decisions. Okay?
Right.
A lot of people are like, "Oh, prostitution is disgusting, this, that, the other." Fine. If you want to think that's fine. But the fact remains, if you don't get laid, as a guy, as a young guy especially, you can make a lot of very big mistakes because of a
True,
desire
man.
for sex that is not being
Exactly.
fulfilled. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to, and those mistakes can be life altering. Okay. Now, of course, fucking some whore is also potentially life altering if she has like herpes or some shit like that. Okay.
Oh,
So
yeah.
make sure to wear a condom and the whole thing. Don't be dumb. Right. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you got to think to yourself that um, there's nothing wrong with it and that it can help you. It can help you so that you don't make mistakes. And that way it can keep you focused on what is important to you at this stage in your life. Remember, you're 25, right? So the girls are like 22, 23, right? You hit 30,
Exactly.
35, you're going to have a lot more gravitas, a lot more confidence in yourself. And those
Mm-hmm.
girls, they're still going to be 22, 25, and they're going to be more intensely attracted to you then. Okay? So be smart. Focus on what
Understood, man.
matters now and understand that you have options. Okay. Remember, if you ever run up against some limitation, look at all the options, no matter how outrageous. Okay. There's nothing wrong with contemplating some outrageous solution to a problem because you're just thinking about it.
Outrageous.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, Coach.
Yeah.
Outrageous, you mean morally despicable, or like something that's not like according to social norms?
Morally, according to social norms, in every sense. Okay. Because see, remember, you can contemplate something without endorsing it. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like for instance, I can contemplate the end of the world, right? Do I want the end of the
Exactly.
world? Of course not, but I can think
Yeah.
about it. I can think about it and say, oh, how could it potentially end? And like gameplay it and figure it out, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And I'm just coming up with an excuse out of thin air, right? In your
Yeah,
situation,
yeah,
yeah, you're horny and you're basically stuffed up, okay? Find a hooker. I'm telling you,
yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that, okay? When I was younger, I thought that hookers and such was just like really just pathetic, right? I got older and I realized that in a lot of ways they're kind of necessary. Don Simpson, the film producer, once said something really, really smart. He said, and Don Simpson at this time was in his 40s, right? But he was a big time producer. He produced Top Gun and a bunch of other movies, right? Very successful movies.
Mm-hmm.
And all these actresses wanted to fuck his brains out because all these actresses
Mm-hmm.
wanted to get a job. Okay. So
Yeah.
he said that he hired hookers because he said, You don't pay them to have sex with you. You pay them
You
to go
pay them to
away
leave.
after.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So think about that. Okay.
absolutely. I get your point, man.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So think about what's important to you and focus on your priority. Okay.
Hmm.
And find
And
a solution to your
just
needs. What?
yeah,
Hmm?
just a last thing. It won't take long. So I was like watching Jordan B. Peterson videos, and I think I made a mistake, like you said I would. I ended up like taking a girl and giving her all the promises, like, "Hey, I want a stable, long-term relationship," and whatnot.
And she ran
So
away.
no, no, no. She's still sticking around. She actually wants to like get married and all sorts of shit. And I mean, I experiment a lot of things. I would read something red pill content, or I would read a great book, and I try things out, and it's all fun and good. But then it's like all the morality kicks in, and all that guilt kicks in. Like, she's young. I should not be like, it's a party years, whatever. But I don't want to like
How
ruin
old
her
is she?
life. I think she is 24. No, I know she's 24, and I
Virgin?
started dating her when no, had like she claimed she had like sex with two guys. Doesn't talk about her sexual endeavors
Is she fucking you?
constantly, a regular basis. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then
So,
why get married?
what?
Why get married to her?
I don't want to get married to her. The long-term stable relationship was something that I thought would be a great idea because like you said, like those hormones maybe wanted me to get the consistent sex or whatnot, but I know it's all rubbish. And
Okay, so hang on a second. You're telling me that right now you're fucking this girl on the regular?
yeah, on not like on day-to-day basis, just like weekends or whenever we're free. We don't live together, no.
Okay. Well, then what's your problem? Because you said you know how to pick up girls. Obviously, you're not satisfied with this current girl, right?
Yeah, I'm not because after some time, it gets faded.
Well, then if I were you, I wouldn't string her along. I'd cut it off with her. Okay? I mean, you're fucking her, but you have no intention of wifing her up and having kids with her, right? So I think
Definitely.
remember, she has a limited time horizon. So I think it's kind of mean to be
To
like
keep her around
stringing,
and
yeah,
yeah.
stringing her along. Yeah, I personally, that's me. Okay.
No, no, I
Um,
agree, man. I agree because, morally it's not correct to just fuck someone's life for impulsive pleasures.
yeah, I mean, like, if both of you are just like having fun and it's not serious on both sides, that's one thing. Sure, keep on going, I would say. But if she wants to get married, she wants to settle down, and you have no intention, don't string her along. That's just mean, you know? Uh,
I would have thought of marriage, but she has some daddy issues, like nothing wrong with her or on any other regard, no smoking, no tattoos, no party whatsoever. It's just that little thing. And she gets like fits about it. And I mean, I don't want to disrespect her publicly. She's a great girl and rest of it.
hmm
But it will come up when in future, long term, day to day, every day, uh, dealing with that. I can only vet her like once in a while, but after a point, I want to be like comfortable when I get home, and I want to focus my energy on my career, not like wearing some girl just to keep up. Or I can be completely wrong about this point too.
Well, look, it doesn't sound that you're very convinced by her, so I would suggest you cut her loose, because I think that you might be doing her a disservice. But this is on you, man. Okay? I mean, it's your decision. You're in the
Understand.
situation. Okay? Uh,
Yeah,
but like my thinking is, you never want to lead on anyone. If you if they believe that you are taking them in a certain direction, but you're not, then you
yeah,
should
yeah,
dissuade them.
definitely, man.
You know,
That's
that's
true.
my thinking. Okay.
Yeah, I definitely agree 100%. Thank you so much, Coach. Loved your videos.
Thank you
Great
so
work.
much. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I'm so glad. Yeah. Take it easy,
yeah.
Saurabh. Okay. Let's go to uh, Guang F. Guang F has a good question. Let me find Guang. Uh, Guang, are you there?
Hey, yes.
Hello?
How's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. And yourself?
Yeah, pretty good. I just want to say thanks a lot for all the great content. You're one of the like the better guys out there that's sharing some good knowledge.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Very kind of you to say.
Yeah. Yeah. So my question is, did you find it difficult transitioning to family life? Because going into 40s and 50s is where you are at the peak, and you have access to money, mobility can move around, and also relationship wise, things are plenty. So was it difficult to give up some of that and transition to having a little bit more responsibility? Of course, there's going to be a lot of great benefits with, seeing your kids grow up and all that, but was that a difficult decision to make?
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Because it would have been a lot harder earlier. Because at that stage in my life, I was sort of like, okay, I'm ready. You know, it was a no-brainer at that stage. And I think that it was smart for me to do that. I recommend it to other guys too, to wait until you have your shit together. Okay.
Hmm.
It seems that a lot of guys, they marry too young, and they haven't spent enough time by themselves figuring themselves out. Okay. And also what
Hmm.
happens, I think the key issue is that when you get older, you become more patient and you can handle shit better because you have more experience. And so you see problems coming from like a ways, and you can
Hmm.
prepare for those problems and a lot of times avoid those problems because you have the foresight to see those problems coming your way. You see what I mean? Problems with the woman, problems with money, problems of all sorts. Okay.
Hmm.
So I personally didn't have that much of a problem. Okay. But also there's something else. I made real sure that I always had time to myself, so I could just sort of like decompress because it's inevitable. You're going to be living with somebody, and there's going to be a lot of pressure and a lot of tension because you're all of a sudden living with somebody else.
Hmm.
So I always made sure that I had time to myself so I can like sort of like decompress, chill out, get my shit organized. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I was thinking in terms of not that like marriage younger, but like even going later on it or not at all, because uh, um, is
Hmm.
there a point where you just feel like you've experienced enough and you had a broad range of experiences to where like you're ready for a different stage in life? Um, or is it, for example, I like to travel a lot and
Hmm.
it just never ends. Like there's always another country that you haven't explored.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes I think like at some point, should it just, you know, the transition should happen, or else it's just like an endless travel and raging, all over the world and having the mobility and spending the money, right?
How old are
So
you?
I am 40.
Okay. Well, look, in my experience, um, it's sort of like that kind of like urge to travel and see the world and go here, go there, and go to parties and this and like that. Um, it kind of like, and before you know it, it sort of like ends and you just get bored of it. Okay. You just get like, okay, enough, you know, and
Mhm.
you'll know it. You'll know it because you'll get invited to some party and you'll be thinking to yourself, oh, there's something on TV I really want to watch or some internet shit that I really want to do. Okay. And
Mhm.
and that'll be the turning point. And it'll just sneak up on you. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And it happens to every guy. Every guy and at different ages. Okay. I mean, it could
Mhm.
be like when you're in your late 20s or your mid 40s. It could be older, but that's a rarity. Okay. But inevitably, it'll happen to you. I mean, you're 40 now. I'll tell you, more likely than not, before you're 45. Okay. So enjoy it while you can because you'll hit a point where you're like, no, I just want to like be in my little nest and chill out. You'll just
Mhm.
want that. You just really won't want to go out. When you get that nesting urge, that's when you're set to get married. That's when you want to have kids. Okay. and it's not something that you can really control, and you shouldn't like push it, nor should you avoid it. You see what I'm saying? I mean, if you're not feeling it, don't worry about it. Keep on trucking, right? But if you are feeling it, don't avoid it. Understand what's coming. Okay? I mean, it's going to be like that. And you'll know, like I said, you'll know because you're just not going to want to go out to some party, and you're going to have this weird nesting urge. This like you just want to have like a comfortable place and just chill. Okay? And like I said, you'll know it, so don't worry about it. Okay? It's like puberty, right? All of a sudden your pecker started standing up, right? You didn't do shit to it. It just sort of like stood up all by itself, right? And there you are in puberty, right? It's the exact same thing. Okay, it's not as dramatic perhaps as puberty, but it's the exact same thing. Your body just tells you, now's the time. Okay?
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
No problem. Great talking to you, man.
Yeah, take care.
You too. Let me see here. Okay, quickly, Parker Thibault says, I have a video editing business starting to make a little more cash. How do I expand this to ultimately make a film animation studio? I have no idea, man. That's your business. Look at other people who have done something similar. Always look at other people who've done something that you admire, okay? There's nothing wrong with copying somebody's career moves, okay? It's not like they have like a patent or a copyright on their career moves, okay? So yeah, that's all I could say about that. Okay. 21 years old, no GED. Your advice on education. A GED, I take it, is like the high school equivalency. Get the high school equivalency. You can't do shit without a high school equivalency. Okay. Coda Washington, he says, your video on 4 types of capital was by far one of your best. Thank you very much. What are your thoughts on spending money to make money? You cannot make money without spending money. Okay. You just can't. Just be strategic about it. And how can I put it? See, spend a lot of money when you need to, but make sure that you don't throw away money. Okay? There's nothing wrong with spending good money, but just make sure that you don't throw it away. Okay? A lot of guys tend to do that. Okay, this is an interesting question. Tobias Tim. I don't think I've ever spoken to Tobias. Tobias. Is it Tobias or Tobias? Tobias, I'm thinking. I'm going to unmute him and we'll find out. Tobias, are you there?
Yes, Coach. Hi, I'm here.
Hi, how's it going? How do you pronounce your name, man?
Tobias.
Tobias. Okay.
Tobias, actually.
Tobias. Okay. Good. Can you do me a favor? Can you not breathe on your microphone?
Sure. Sorry.
Like put it on the side. That way you're not breathing right on it. So what's on you have a great question here. So why don't you hit us with it?
Okay. I'm asking if insiders are just cogs in the machine, because it seems like you kind of look down on insiders a bit, but on the other hand, you said you don't look down on insiders.
Yeah.
Because you yourself are an outsider.
Yep. Yeah. So let me explain my thinking. You're kind of right that an insider can become a cog in the machine. That is, he's quiet, he does nothing, he just does his work. He goes to work in the morning, does the work, and then goes at home, and that's it. Boom, done. That's a cog in the machine. Okay. But you can be on the inside in a corporate environment and not be a cog in the machine. And how are you a guy on the inside, not a cog in the machine? By striving for more, by making noise, by self-promoting yourself. Because I came up with this notion of the cog in the machine in the video that I released last week about self-promotion, right? Excuse me. And in that video, I said that, there's the cog in the machine that's very quiet and never, tries to self-promote. You can be inside a corporate environment and constantly self-promoting yourself. Okay. It's not one exclusive of the other. What I'm saying is that a guy who's, hang on, excuse me a second. Oh, my throat is just like so parched from talking so much. So Sorry about that. A guy who I lost my train of thought. A guy who's on the inside can be a cog in the machine if he doesn't strive for more. And how does he strive for more? By self-promoting himself. Okay? A cog in the machine is just there to do the work, and that's it. And from my point of view, it seems that he's throwing his life away because a cog in the machine, he'll never get to more. Other people will decide his fate. Whereas a guy on the inside rather, who pushes himself, pushes his name, tries to self-promote, tries to do the ugly business of sucking up, as I called it, which it is. It's an ugly business, but a necessary business, right? Well, that kind of guy, he'll achieve more and he'll have a more fulfilling career, okay? Understand the difference, okay? Cog in the machine is an insider who just does not self-promote, and he lets other people dictate his destiny. But an insider who's successful is a guy who's pushing himself within the framework of the corporation. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, an outsider, by definition, he's always pushing himself because nobody else is going to do it for him, okay? And so that's why an outsider, by definition, will always be pushing himself. But a guy on the inside, he could be either a cog in the machine or like a guy who's pushing his name and self-promoting himself. You see the difference and what I meant by that distinction?
I understand. Thanks. And I've got another question. You mentioned own a business with $10 million in sales when I'm 40, then the decade after. Is it per year or is it for like a couple of years, 10 million?
Yeah, 10 million per year. That's yeah, we're talking about $10 million in sales per year. Yeah. Like for instance, if you have net margins of like say 3%, $10 million sales per year would mean that you're getting a net income, you yourself as a business owner, of 300,000 a year. That after all expenses, taxes, and all the rest of it are paid off, and including your own salary. Yeah, that would be like a reasonable amount. Okay, it could be more, but $10 million per year is for a business. By the time you're 40, that should be an aim, and it's achievable. Most businesses, I mean, how can I put this? I'm not gonna sound like an asshole when I say this, but $10 million a year in sales is not that much money. It might sound like a lot, especially if you're younger, but $10 million for a business in terms of sales is actually very small. Okay, you'd be surprised. And if you're not sure, look at like a McDonald's, like a McDonald's restaurant, any random McDonald's franchise. Ask yourself how many people stop by every day to buy McDonald's. Say 1,000 people, and say they spend $10 each on average. Those 1,000 people in a day. Okay, and you don't think that 1,000 people go to McDonald's? Count them. I bet that it's a lot more than 1,000. Okay, I mean, you don't have to be there the whole 10 hours or 12 hours. Just be there an hour and count how many people walk in or how many people go up to the cashier, right? And you'll find soon enough that, yeah, sure, it's 1,000 people or more per day, and say they spend an average of $10 per day. So that's $10,000 times 365 days. That's $3.6 million in sales per year. And that's just one McDonald's franchise, one McDonald's restaurant. That's what they're selling. So $10 million in sales per year is not a hell of a lot of money, okay? And so that should be your aim, okay? You should always be aiming for concrete targets at specific times. That's really the point, okay? Different businesses will have different targets of what's reasonable, but if you set up a specific target for a specific time, you are likely to focus on achieving that particular goal. And we men are very good at achieving goals when we have a clear goal. See, and I think that that's part of the reason of this exercise is setting yourself up for clear goals. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't really matter what the goal is, but if you have it really clear and you articulate it clearly, it's more likely than not you will achieve it. That's, I think, my point. Yeah,
I understand.
No
And one last question, if I'm allowed.
Sure.
I'm 24 now. Would you suggest that I try out one thing for half a year or for 1 month and then another thing for half a year or a couple of months and like different things?
Sure. The more the merrier. Yeah. But don't make it like 1 month. Make it like 6 months at least so that you really learn it. Because in 1 month, you're not going to learn that much. But in 6 months, you'll learn real well. You see what I'm
Like
saying?
different businesses or something like that.
Sure. Sure.
Okay,
You're
thank you so
24.
much, Coach.
Yeah, but let me just to finish the point. See, you're 24. You got boatloads of time. So explore as much as possible. Okay?
Thanks. We actually met in Amsterdam last year at the
Oh, we
meetup.
did? Yeah?
Yeah, we have a photo. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, my pleasure. I'm gonna do another Amsterdam meetup. Yeah, I should because I really enjoy meetups. They're just a lot of fun. So yeah, I'll definitely
Nice.
do another one. So anyway, take care and great talking to
Take care.
Tobias. Let me see. Sure, Kota. I'll put you on. Kota Washington wants to drop by. Sure. Kota, what's up? Hello, Kota. Are you there? Kota, we're waiting for Kota's microphone to come green.
Hello?
There we go.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey there, Coach. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. What's up?
Hey, so I recently listened to your video about the 4 kinds of capital, and I think it's a great way for the success and the map to success. Something to really keep in mind is developing all those 4 areas. And so what I was just thinking, how that connected to today's lecture, which was that you said that an expensive apartment, like you're not really there that often, so it's not that important.
Yep.
But in the way this connects to the 4 kinds of capital, isn't there a value in getting an expensive apartment that's in a prime location because it allows you to build a stronger or more professional social network as opposed to being in a very poor area? And also the prestige of living in a nice apartment would give you access to a higher emotional and social market. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, when you're young, not really. Okay. It's just as simple as that. Because the only time when you're young that living in a highfalutin area would count is when you actually didn't earn the money, but rather somebody gave it to you because your parents are rich. Okay. And so they're paying your credit card and your bills and shit. But when you're young at that age, it's not really going to affect you. And there's something else too. There's a really good saying that, see, the people who care about that kind of shit don't matter, and the people who matter don't care. Okay. So, like living in my thinking has always been, you should live in a place that's fun, okay? As opposed to worrying about what other people think of your place, okay? And I think a lot of times people worry too much about what other people think, as opposed to them focusing on what's their own priority, okay? You should be focusing on what is important to you, what makes you happy, okay? Like it's so easy to fall for the trap of like, oh, this is the cool place, this is the prestigious place. I used to fall for that trap. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of times I lived in places that I wasn't really having a good time. I'm gonna mute you because it's sort of like there's some noise in the background there. I used to live in places that I didn't really have a very good time, but they were considered prestigious or the nice place or the right place to live. And later I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? I'm having a shitty time, I'm paying too much, and I don't really like it, you know? And it's hard lesson learned. So my thinking is, if a place is not giving you some direct benefit and like tangible, immediate benefit, then why are you living there? And another thing too, see, if you live in a sort of like a crappy area, right? Then don't mention it to the people that you know that you live in the crappy area. You don't have to talk about it, okay? I mean, how many times are you going around talking about where you live to other people that you interact with, huh? And there's something else, a key issue. In our contemporary society, we do not really spend that much time with our neighbors. We do not spend that much time with the people in our area. We spend time with people that we have shared interests with, that we have learned or come to know of through different areas, not by way of our physical location. And what's happening now with COVID-19 is that we're all moving to different places, remote working and all that, precisely because we're able to. And so therefore we're like, who gives a shit where we live? We'll just remote work, right? And so where you live is not that important for your long-term social relationships, okay? So I wouldn't worry about it. Let me unmute you, Coda, so that I can round off the conversation. You see what I'm saying there? Hello, you there?
Yeah, I definitely. Can you hear me?
Yeah. You got anything else on your mind?
Yeah. So I definitely get that point that you're putting across there, that we really don't spend as much time with our neighbors as we might think. I'm quite young, but I'm in my 20s, but I do have a business, and I was thinking.
You're breaking up, man. You broke up. I only got that you had a business, and what happened? Hello? Oh man, you're all robotic. I think you're too far from your Wi-Fi. Hello? 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 Oh man, we lost Coda. Yeah, we lost him. Okay, Coda, you're gonna have to when you get back your internet, we'll I'm gonna wind it down, to tell you the truth. So Coda, I'm so sorry, but I hope to catch you next time. And yeah, it says now that you're offline, so I don't think you even hear me anymore. But I'll catch you next time. I hope to see you next week. And finally, RM says that he doesn't have a microphone, but he has a question. What if I miss some of the goals? Readjust, reconsider, try harder? My thoughts is that it's a non-issue as long as I'm on the path. Yes, exactly. It doesn't really matter as long as you're on the path. It is inevitable that you're going to miss some goals, and it's inevitable that you're going to overshoot other goals, okay? That you will reach certain milestones before anticipated and fail to reach certain milestones by the time you would like, okay? So you're constantly going to have to be reevaluating. Sometimes you will have set a goal that you think is going to be very easy, and it turns out to be a lot harder than you realized. And sometimes the reverse is true. Sometimes you think that like for instance, having a business that sells 10 million, has sales of 10 million per year, that sounds outrageously high. But then, you set up a business when you're like 27, say, and then all of a sudden you figure that, fingers crossed, you reach that 10 million sales per year milestone when you're 40, and you hit it when you're 30, 10 years ahead of schedule. Yeah, it happens all the time. And so what you have to be doing is just reevaluating, number one. And that's to answer your question, RM. But to round off this entire conversation, I'm going to wind down the broadcast. I want to emphasize something really, really important, which is, see, this shit is a tool, okay? But the tool, the point of the tool is very important. When you have a wrench, what's the wrench for? It's to loosen a nut, a nut in a bolt, right? You want to loosen the nut, right? And it has to fit, and you crank it and you loosen the nut and all good, right? It's a tool. What's the tool of this scheduling, of this budgeting, of this planning? Okay, what's the goal of it? The goal of it is to help you achieve that status as an old man with a whole bunch of sub goals. Because the overarching goal is to provide for that old man, so that old man has had or will have had a happy life. A happy life with a family of his own, children of his own that will give him satisfaction, with enough money from rental properties or whatever other income, so that he's not homeless as an old man. He's not a burden to other people. He lives in comfort as an old man. He's not worried about paying the medical bills and whatnot. That's the overarching goal. to take care of that old man that you will become. And so why do you do a budget like this? To set sub goals, the sub goals that are necessary to achieve that overarching goal. The sub goals can change, and you shouldn't worry about them changing. I mean, strive for each of these sub goals. Try your hardest, sure. And if you fail to achieve one of these sub goals, ask yourself why you're failing to achieve it, because also it's not going to be a sudden thing. You're going to realize it with miles away, as it were, right? So you have to see why you're failing some goal, and if the sub goal is really essential for that overarching goal, which is to take care of that old man. I mean, never forget the overarching goal. See, earlier today, I recorded a bunch of videos for the week because, like I told you, I'm going to go skydiving next week. And so I wanted to have them all recorded and rendered and uploaded and whatnot so that I could go off with a clean conscience, right? Now, at one point, I had lunch and I got, these little salads. They make these salads here in Holland at the Albert Heijn, which is the local supermarket chain here. They're all over the place. And they have these great little salads that I really just love, the Mexican salad shit, right? With like a Thousand Island dressing. It's really great, right? And so I got 2 of these little salads and put them all on a plate and whatnot. And I left a little bit of a mess. And I also ate an ice cream, and so the wrapper of the ice cream, I just left it there on the kitchen counter with the other trash, right? And I thought to myself, what am I doing? See, why don't I throw it away now? Because my future self is going to have to take care of this shit. My future self in, the next half an hour or 2 hours at most, right? And that's what happened because, I in the kitchen, I set up my lunch, and then I took my lunch here to the living room level of my house in front of my computer, and I was doing computer shit, while I was eating. And then later I took the plate downstairs to the kitchen to put it in the dishwashing machine, and there was that garbage, and the difference in time was maybe 45 minutes. My 45-year-old version, a 45-minute older version, right? The later version of me had to deal with all this shit. And it was no trouble, of course, because I was only older by 45 minutes. Big deal. But my 80-year-old self, he's not going to be able to do some of that stuff. See what I mean? See, when I unpacked that lunch, right, and put it on the plate and left all that debris there, that garbage and whatnot, see, I was thinking that my future self could take care of it. But you have to realize that your future self, when it's far enough away, he won't be able to take care of it. He's the guy you got to keep in mind. And the shit that you do right now is always going to be easier. Because as you age, once you're past the age of 25, your body is always decaying, little by little. Your body is decaying, your brain is decaying, therefore your mind is decaying, little by little, inevitably. Okay? So if you can do shit earlier to make the life of your future self easier, do it. Always. Always bite the bullet as soon as possible. Always make the sacrifice as early as possible. Never leave for tomorrow what you can do today, because tomorrow it's going to be harder because you are decaying little by little. In this stupid example I gave you of me, leaving the debris of all that garbage there on the kitchen counter and figuring that my future self would take care of it. Yeah, sure. It was only 45 minutes difference. I mean, the difference, I hadn't decayed that much over 45 minutes, obviously, right? But in a few years, and not that many years, you decay a lot. And I've noticed it. I'm 52. And I look at pictures of myself of just a few years ago, like 3-4 years ago, videos I made when I started my channels. And I look less. I'm decaying. It's inevitable. Okay? So understand this and be afraid of the fact that you are decaying. Fear is a great motivator. Use this tool to set your sub goals so that you take care of that old man. Nobody else will take care of him. Nobody else's promises will stand up to the test of time. No government is going to look after you. No wife, no children. Nobody's going to look after you. Only you can look after yourself. Okay? Okay. I hope you enjoyed this broadcast. Thank you so much. To tell you the truth, I always like these broadcasts. They're just a lot of fun for me, you know, and I hope they're fun for you as well. I hope to see you on the next broadcast. And so, yeah. So until then, let me just, let me just end this here real quick. I'm trying to fucking end this fucking broadcast, but I can't hit the goddamn fucking control. There we go. There we are. Okay. Catch you next week. Thank you so much. And until then.